in the emptiness between stars, where the Federation starship USS Enterprise drifted in standard orbit around a lifeless moon, reality fractured. Not with the familiar shimmer of a transporter beam or the controlled distortion of a warp field. This was something else entirely. Something wrong. Lieutenant Commander Data's fingers flew across his console. Captain, I am detecting a massive subspace rupture bearing 270 Mark III. Energy readings are inconsistent with any known phenomenon. Captain Jean-Luc Picard rose from his command chair, eyes narrowing at the viewscreen. On screen, the void twisted. Colors that had no names in any Federation language bled through the tear. Ultraviolet shadows, crimson darkness, geometric impossibilities that made human eyes water. And then, as suddenly as it appeared, something fell through. A man. No ship, no escape pod, no environmental suit, just a man, suspended in the vacuum of space, surrounded by what sensors could only describe as coherent subspace anomalies that writhed around him like living smoke. "Shields up," Picard ordered, his voice calm but commanding. "Red alert. Counselor, do you sense anything?" Deanna Troy's eyes widened, her empathic abilities reeling. "Captain, I've never felt anything like this. It's as if he's empty and infinite at the same time. There's no fear, no panic, just vast purpose." "Sir, the anomalies surrounding him are stabilizing," Data reported. "They appear to be protecting him from vacuum exposure. I am reading humanoid life signs, but his quantum signature is fluctuating across 17 different dimensional frequencies." In the void, Sung Jin-Woo's eyes opened. The system interface materialized before his vision, its familiar blue screens adjusting, recalibrating, text flickering between Korean and something else. Something it was learning. Alert, dimensional translation in progress. New environment detected, analyzing local physics. Mana signature not found. Alternative energy source detected. Subspace. Recalibrating shadow authority. Compatibility 82% and rising. Awaiting Hunter's command. Jin-Woo took a breath, unnecessary in vacuum, but his physiology as the Shadow Monarch transcended such mundane limitations. He could feel it immediately. This universe operated differently. The ambient mana that saturated his Earth didn't exist here, but there was something else. A layered reality beneath normal space. Pockets of folded dimensions that his shadows could inhabit. Interesting. His hand moved, and darkness answered. From his shadow, somehow still visible in the airless void, tendrils of pure black emerged, solidifying into forms. Not his full army. Not yet. Just a test. 3 shadow soldiers materialized beside him. Igris, his greatest knight, standing 10 feet tall in obsidian armor that drank starlight. Iron, the massive tank-class shadow whose shield could block artillery. And Beru, the Ant King whose chitinous form gleamed with lethal intelligence. "My king." Beru's telepathic voice resonated in Jin-Woo's mind. "This place, the mana is wrong, different." "I know." Jin-Woo responded silently. "We adapt. We always do." Aboard the Enterprise, chaos erupted. "But, Captain!" Worf's voice boomed from tactical. 3 additional contacts have appeared adjacent to the humanoid. Mass readings are impossible. They register as both matter and energy simultaneously. Weapon signatures are... I have never seen anything like this. "Are they hostile?" Picard demanded. "Unknown. They are not attacking, but they are armed with weapons that do not match any Federation, Klingon, Romulan, or Borg design profiles." Picard's mind raced. A human or humanoid, surviving in open space with impossible guardians appearing from nowhere. This was first contact of a sort he'd never anticipated. "Open a channel. All frequencies." "Channel open, sir." Picard stepped forward, hands clasped behind his back in his characteristic stance. "This is Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise. You have appeared in Federation space under unusual circumstances. We mean you no harm, but we require an explanation. Can you understand me?" Jin-Woo tilted his head. The universal translator's signal washed over him, and the system, brilliant, adaptive, constantly evolving, intercepted it, analyzed it, cracked its algorithms in 2.3 seconds. Language protocol. The acquired Federation standard. Communication possible. "I can understand you," Jin-Woo replied, his voice carrying across the void via the same subspace frequencies the Enterprise used. His tone was measured, polite, but utterly without deference. "I am Sung Jin-Woo. I did not intend to arrive here. A dimensional breach during combat brought me to this place." On the bridge, Data's head snapped up. "Captain, his communication is not being transmitted through any device. He is somehow modulating subspace directly with his biology. This should not be possible." "And yet it is," Picard murmured. He focused on the view screen, where Jin-Woo floated, 3 impossible warriors flanking him. "Mr. Sung, you are currently in open space without life support. We can beam you aboard and provide assistance if you require." "That won't be necessary," Jin-Woo interrupted gently. "I don't require life support, but I do need information. What universe is this? What galaxy? What year?" Picard exchanged glances with Riker. "You are in the Milky Way galaxy, Sector 001, on stardate 47,988.1. By Earth reckoning, the year is 2370. May I ask, what universe are you from?" Jin-Woo considered this. How to explain? "A parallel Earth. One where dungeons and monsters emerged 30 years ago, one where humans awakened to power and fought to survive." He paused, watching their reactions through the view screen he somehow knew was there. "I am what my world calls a hunter, the strongest hunter." Riker leaned toward Picard. "Sir, this could be an elaborate deception, or he could be telling the truth. Either way, we need to bring him aboard, run scans." "Agreed, but carefully." Picard straightened. "Mr. Sung, while we have much to discuss, I believe a face-to-face conversation would be more productive than speaking across the void. Would you consent to beaming aboard our ship?" Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed slightly. "Beaming? Transportation via matter-energy conversion. It's perfectly safe." The system immediately flagged warnings. "Matter conversion detected in local technology. Shadow integrity may be compromised. And a recommendation, decline." "I'll pass," Jin-Woo said. "But I can come to you another way." Before Picard could respond, Jin-Woo simply moved. Not flying, not teleporting in the way Federation sensors understood teleportation. He became shadow, slipped through the folded layers of subspace, and rematerialized inside the Enterprise's bridge. Alarms shrieked. Worf's phaser was drawn before Jin-Woo fully solidified, the weapon humming with lethal charge. Jin-Woo stood in the center of the bridge, perfectly calm, hands visible and empty. Behind him, his 3 shadow soldiers materialized, Igris, Iron, and Beru. Their forms too large for the space, yet somehow not colliding with any consuls or crew members, as if they existed slightly out of phase with normal matter. "How did you penetrate our shields?" Worf demanded, on phaser trained on Jin-Woo's center mass. Jin-Woo glanced at the weapon, then at the Klingon warrior. He recognized a fighter when he saw one. "Your shields defend against energy and matter. I traveled through the spaces between. Your technology is impressive, but it doesn't account for dimensional movement. Data was already scanning, tricorder chirping frantically. Fascinating. Captain, he is correct. He did not penetrate the shields. He bypassed them entirely by moving through subspace itself. His quantum signature suggests he exists partially in at least 4-dimensional planes simultaneously. Picard raised a hand, and Worf, reluctantly, lowered his phaser. The captain's eyes met Jin-Woo's, and something passed between them. Recognition of will, of intelligence, of power held in check. "Mr. Sung," Picard said carefully, "you have just demonstrated technology, or ability, far beyond our current understanding. In the interest of mutual cooperation, I ask that you explain exactly what you are and what you intend." Jin-Woo studied the bridge, taking in the crew. The android whose readings appeared in his system interface as Artificial Life Form, Threat Level C+. The Klingon Warrior, Biological Combatant, Threat Level D. The Empathic Woman, Psychic Abilities Detected, Non-Hostile. And the Captain himself? Human Leader, Threat Level E/Authority Level, ORSA. None of them were threats to him physically, but he recognized intelligence, organization, civilization. This was not a world of monsters. These were people. "I am the Shadow Monarch," Jin-Woo said simply. "In my world, I command an army of 10 million shadow soldiers extracted from the beings I've defeated. I can manipulate shadows, dimensions, and death itself. I am effectively immortal and possess strength that could level cities." He paused, letting that sink in. "But I am not your enemy. I was fighting to protect my Earth when something went wrong. A rift opened, and now I'm here." The bridge was utterly silent. Riker broke it first. 10 million? Yes. Jin-Woo gestured, and the air above his hand shimmered. A translucent blue screen appeared, the system interface visible to all. Numbers, stats, skills in Korean and Federation standards scrolled past. "This is my system. It allows me to grow stronger, store items, and create pocket dimensions. In your terms, I think you'd call it a quantum computer integrated with my neural pathways." Data's eyes widened, as much as an android's could. Extraordinary. The computational power required to maintain that interface would exceed our most advanced AI systems. Picard took a measured breath. This was beyond first contact. This was contact with a being who claimed godlike power, backed by a demonstration that suggested he wasn't exaggerating. "Mr. Sung," Jin-Woo, "you say you're not our enemy. What do you want?" Jin-Woo's expression softened slightly. "Information, a way home. And while I'm here, I won't allow threats to innocent people if I can prevent them." He met Picard's gaze squarely. "I've spent years fighting monsters to protect humanity. That doesn't change just because I'm in a different universe." Counselor Troy spoke up, her voice gentle but firm. "Captain, I believe he's telling the truth. The emotional resonance I'm sensing is protective, determined. There's loss there and responsibility, but no malice." Picard nodded slowly. This was a moment that required wisdom, not weapons. "Then perhaps we can help each other. We have scientists who specialize in dimensional phenomena. If there's a way to return you to your universe, we'll find it. In exchange, we'd like to learn more about your abilities and your world. Peacefully." Jin-Woo considered this. An alliance with these people could provide resources, information about this universe's physics. And something in this captain's bearing, honor, integrity, reminded him of the few hunters he'd trusted. "Agreed. But I won't be a lab specimen. We work together, or not at all. Understood. Picard extended his hand. Welcome aboard the Enterprise, Sung Jin-Woo. Jin-Woo shook it, the gesture foreign, but appreciated. As their hands met, the system chimed softly in his mind. New quest generated. Survive and adapt. Star Trek universe. Objective, understand local physics. Objective, locate dimensional breach. Objective, establish standing in new environment. Rewards, system evolution, new skills, potential return path. Behind him, Baru shifted restlessly. My king, shall we return to shadow form? Not yet, Jin-Woo responded. Let them see what we are. Honesty builds trust faster than deception. Picard turned to his crew. Commander Data, begin passive scans. With Mr. Sung's permission, Counselor, please escort our guest to guest quarters. We'll reconvene in 1 hour to discuss next steps. As Troy stepped forward, Jin-Woo felt his connection to his shadows strengthen. The initial 82% compatibility had risen to 94% in just minutes as the system adapted, learning to channel his power through this universe's subspace layers. Soon, he'd be at full capacity, perhaps beyond it. This universe didn't have mana, but it had something better. Structured dimensional frameworks he could exploit. The Enterprise crew didn't know it yet, but they just welcomed aboard the single most powerful individual their galaxy had ever encountered. And somewhere in the void beyond, the dimensional rift that had brought him here pulsed ominously, growing wider with each passing second. If you want to see more crossover battles and unexpected universe collisions, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and universe you'd want to see in the comments below. Let's explore the infinite together. Guest quarters aboard the Enterprise were designed for comfort and diplomacy. Soft lighting, replicated furniture tailored to various species' needs, and a viewport displaying the endless star field. Jin-Woo stood before that window, 3 shadow soldiers flanking him in perfect stillness, while Counselor Troy lingered near the doorway. She watched him with professional curiosity tinged with genuine empathy. You're remarkably calm for someone who just fell through reality. Jin-Woo didn't turn from the stars. I've faced worse. At least here I'm not fighting for my life every second. He paused. Yet, you expect conflict? I always expect conflict. His reflection in the viewport showed no emotion. In my experience, power creates fear. Fear creates confrontation. Your captain seems wise, but he's not the only authority in this universe. Troy stepped closer, careful to maintain respectful distance. As an empath, she could feel the layers beneath his calm exterior, not hostile, but calculating. You don't trust easily. I was betrayed by people I thought were allies, nearly died because of political games. Jin-Woo finally turned to face her. Trust is earned through action, not words. Before Troy could respond, the door chimed. Come, she called. Commander Data entered, tricorder in hand, his golden eyes bright with intellectual curiosity. Mr. Sung, the captain has asked me to provide you with information about our universe while we prepare for the briefing. If you're amenable, I would also like to conduct non-invasive scans to better understand your physiology. Jin-Woo gestured to the android. Scan away, but I'll warn you now. Your equipment might not give you accurate readings. Data activated his tricorder, and immediately the device began emitting error tones. He adjusted settings, recalibrated, tried alternative scan frequencies. Each attempt yielded contradictory data. Fascinating, Data murmured. Your cellular structure appears human, yet your quantum signature suggests you exist in a state of controlled superposition. Your shadow soldiers, as you call them. He glanced at Igris, whose obsidian armor reflected nothing. They register as both matter and pure energy, neither fully one nor the other. The machine man speaks truth, my king. Beru's voice echoed telepathically. We are dead, yet we live. We are shadow, yet we have form. This universe's tools cannot comprehend paradox. Jin-Woo allowed himself a slight smile. Or they're composed of what my world calls shadow essence. The fundamental energy of death and darkness given permanent form. They can't die again because they're already dead. They can't be destroyed because they exist partially outside normal space. Data's fingers flew across the tricorder. If I'm understanding correctly, they occupy pocket dimensions tethered to your consciousness, manifesting in real space only when needed. The energy expenditure required to maintain millions of such entities would be... He trailed off, recalculating. Equivalent to the power output of a small star. I'm the Shadow Monarch, Jin-Woo said simply. That kind of power comes with a title. The system chimed softly, visible only to Jin-Woo. Subspace compatibility, 97%. Shadow Authority recalibration complete. New skill unlocked. Subspace Shadow Transit. Description: utilize subspace layers for instantaneous shadow army deployment across vast distances. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. The system was evolving, learning from this universe's physics. His shadows could now move through subspace itself, meaning he could deploy his army anywhere in this galaxy instantly. That changed everything. Commander Data, Jin-Woo said carefully. In this universe, how fast can ships travel? Maximum warp speed varies by vessel class. The Enterprise can achieve warp 9.6, which translates to approximately 1,909 times the speed of light. At such velocity, we could cross Federation space approximately 8,000 light-years in approximately 40 days. Jin-Woo processed this. Fast, but still limited by physics. His shadow transit, however, operated on different principles. If he could access subspace directly. And what's the greatest threat your Federation faces? Data's expression became grave, a surprisingly human affectation for an android. Currently, the Borg Collective represents our most significant existential threat. They are a cybernetic species that assimilates entire civilizations into their collective consciousness. They adapt to any weapon after a single exposure. 3 years ago, they nearly destroyed Earth. We barely survived. Cybernetic organisms that consume civilizations? Beru's mental voice carried dark amusement. My king, they sound like a challenge worthy of your army. Jin-Woo ignored the Ant King's bloodthirst. These Borg, can they be killed permanently? Yes, and though it requires overwhelming force or tactics, they cannot adapt too quickly enough. Individual drones can be destroyed, but the collective replaces them instantly. Their true threat is their adaptation protocols and vast numbers. Numbers, Jin-Woo repeated softly. He had 10 million shadows. The Borg had never faced an enemy that matched their numerical advantage with superior individual power. Tell me everything about them. 1 hour later, the Enterprise briefing room hummed with tension. Picard sat at the head of the conference table, flanked by his senior officers. Riker, Data, Worf, Troy, LaForge, and Dr. Crusher. Jin-Woo sat opposite the captain, alone. His shadow soldiers dismissed for now, though everyone knew he could summon them instantly. Mr. Sung, Picard began, Commander Data has provided you with basic information about our universe. Now I need to understand the dimensional breach that brought you here. Our sensors detected massive subspace instabilities during your arrival. Is the rift still open? Jin-Woo nodded. The system indicates it's not only open, it's expanding. Whatever force tore me from my universe is still active. If it continues unchecked, it could destabilize this entire sector of space. LaForge leaned forward, his visor focusing on Jin-Woo with spectrum analysis. Do you know what caused it? I was fighting another monarch, a being of similar power to myself, when the rift appeared. Our clash might have fractured dimensional barriers, or... Jin-Woo frowned. Something else manipulated the battle to create this breach deliberately. Why would someone want to tear a hole between universes? Riker asked. Invasion, research, weaponization. Jin-Woo's voice was cold. In my world, dimensional gates became battlegrounds. If someone or something is opening permanent rifts between realities, the implications are catastrophic. Dr. Crusher spoke up, her medical expertise evident. I've been reviewing data scans of you. Your physiology is human baseline with radical enhancements. How did you acquire these abilities? Jin-Woo considered how much to reveal. I died. Completely. My heart stopped, my brain shut down. But something, an entity calling itself the Architect, brought me back and gave me the system. It turned my life into something like a game. Quests, experience points, leveling up, and every monster I killed made me stronger. Eventually, I became strong enough to inherit the Monarch of Shadow's power. A game? Picard repeated, his scholarly instincts piqued. Reality restructured into quantifiable progression. That's unprecedented. In my universe, yes. Here, Jin-Woo gestured around the room. Your technology does something similar. You've turned matter into energy, energy into matter. You've quantified and controlled forces that would seem magical to earlier humans. The system just applied game logic to personal power instead of external technology. Worf growled, his warrior's pride offended. Power without honor, without earning through battle and sacrifice. Jin-Woo's eyes locked onto the Klingon, and for the first time, genuine steel entered his voice. I've died protecting people who hated hunters. I've watched friends sacrifice themselves to save strangers. I've fought alone against armies to buy time for evacuation. Don't lecture me about honor or sacrifice, warrior. I've paid for my power in blood and grief. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Worf held Jin-Woo's gaze for a long moment, and then gave a curt nod of respect. A fighter recognized another fighter. Picard cleared his throat. Gentlemen, we're allies here, not adversaries. He turned to Data. Commander, what's your analysis of the dimensional breach? Data activated the wall display, showing a three-dimensional model of local space. A pulsing red anomaly marked the rift's location, approximately 2.3 light-years from their current position. The rift is expanding at an accelerating rate. At current projections, it will reach critical mass in 72 hours, at which point the dimensional barriers may collapse entirely. The result would be catastrophic. Multiple realities bleeding into each other, physical laws becoming unstable, possible destruction of all affected universes. Silence fell like a hammer. Can it be closed? Picard asked. Theoretically, yes. We would need to generate a massive subspace field to seal the breach, then stabilize the dimensional barriers. However, our power generation capacity is insufficient. We would need... Data calculated rapidly. Approximately 10 to the power of 23 watts sustained for at least 18 minutes. LaForge whistled. That's more power than a dozen starships combined. We'd need to tap a stellar core or find some kind of exotic energy source. Jin-Woo spoke quietly. How much energy does my shadow army represent? Every head turned toward him. Data's fingers flew across his console. If each of your soldiers generates the energy signature we detected earlier, and you command 10 million, the collective output would be approximately 8.7 times 10 to the power of 23 watts. More than sufficient. My king? Igris's voice suddenly manifested in the room. The Shadow Knight materializing behind Jin-Woo's chair, uninvited, his presence radiating ancient, battle-tested authority. You would risk the army to seal a wound not of our making? Picard tensed, hand moving toward the console panic button, but Jin-Woo raised a hand. Stand down, Igris. These people aren't enemies. He turned to face his greatest soldier. And yes, I would. If that rift destroys this universe, it might consume mine as well. We close it. Igris inclined his helmeted head. As you command. He dissolved back into shadow. Our Worf's hand was still on his phaser. You summoned him without warning. That could be considered a hostile act. He responds to my intent, not formal commands. I was thinking about the army. He manifested. Jin-Woo met Worf's glare calmly. Get used to it. My shadows go where I need them, when I need them. That's not going to change. Riker intervened before tensions escalated. Captain, even if we can generate the power, we still need to coordinate the field deployment. That's going to require precise timing and you'll need me at the center of it. Jin-Woo finished. I understand. I'll be the conduit. The system can interface with your technology. It's already adapted to your language and sensor protocols. Give me the specifications and I'll make it work. Picard studied the young man before him. Powerful beyond measure, yet willing to risk himself for a universe not his own. It reminded him of the best Starfleet officers he'd known. Very well. Commander Data, work with Mr. Sung to develop the technical specifications. Geordi, prepare the Enterprise to provide support platforms. We have 72 hours. He stood, and the rest of the crew followed. Dismissed. Mr. Sung, a word in private. The officers filed out, leaving only Jin-Woo and Picard in the briefing room. Picard walked to the viewport, hands clasped behind his back. You're not telling us everything. It wasn't a question. Jin-Woo joined him at the window. No, I'm not. Just like you're not telling me everything about your universe's threats, political structures, or military capabilities. Fair enough. Picard turned to face him directly. More, but I need to know one thing. Are you a danger to the Federation? Not unless the Federation becomes a danger to innocent people, Jin-Woo replied honestly. I've fought corrupt governments before. I've overthrown organizations that sacrificed civilians for profit. If your Federation is what your captain claims, a force for exploration and protection, then we have no conflict. And if it's not? Jin-Woo's expression hardened. Then you'll discover why I'm called the Shadow Monarch. Picard held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Honesty. I appreciate that, even when it's uncomfortable. He extended his hand again. Let's save both our universes, Mr. Sung. Then we'll worry about politics. Jin-Woo shook it firmly. Agreed. As Picard left, Jin-Woo remained at the viewport, watching stars streak past at warp speed, and the system displayed a new notification. Quest update. New objective. Closed dimensional breach. Warning, unknown entities detected near rift location. Threat assessment calculating. Recommend full army deployment readiness. Unknown entities. Of course, it couldn't be simple. Jin-Woo smiled without humor. When was it ever simple? The Enterprise's engineering section thrummed with controlled chaos. Geordi LaForge stood at the master system's display, his visor processing 17 simultaneous data streams while his hands orchestrated power flow adjustments with practiced precision. Beside him, Data ran computational models that would have burned out lesser computer cores. And in the center of it all, Sung Jin-Woo stood with eyes closed, the system interface blazing before him in cascading blue light. "Okay, this is insane," LaForge muttered, watching energy readings spike beyond theoretical maximums. "Jin-Woo, you're channeling enough power through your body right now to vaporize a starship. How are you not dead?" Jin-Woo opened one eye. "I already died once. It didn't take." He refocused on the system's integration protocols. "Your subspace harmonics are elegant, much more refined than raw mana manipulation. The math is beautiful." Data tilted his head. "You understand the quantum field equations?" "The system translates it, shows me the patterns." Jin-Woo gestured, and holographic formulae appeared beside Federation schematics, the two systems interweaving. "Your technology bends space. My shadows fold dimensions. They're compatible because they're both manipulating the same fundamental fabric, just from different angles." LaForge leaned closer to the display. "Then theoretically, you could use subspace channels to deploy your army across..." "How far?" "The system says galaxy-wide range, maybe further. Distance becomes relative when you're moving through folded space instead of across it." Jin-Woo frowned at a particularly complex equation. But that's not our immediate problem. These unknown entities your sensors detected near the rift, what are they?" Data's expression shifted to something resembling concern. "Long-range scans are inconclusive. The dimensional instability interferes with sensors. However, I am detecting residual tachyon emissions consistent with temporal displacement and geometric patterns suggesting artificial structures." "Artificial?" Jin-Woo repeated. "So not natural phenomenon. Someone built something near the rift. Or something came through it," LaForge added grimly. The comm system chirped. "Bridge to engineering. We're approaching the coordinates, dropping out of warp in 30 seconds. LaForge tapped his comm badge. "Acknowledged. Jin-Woo, you ready for whatever we're about to find?" Jin-Woo's eyes gleamed with cold light. "Not always." The view screen on the Enterprise bridge revealed a sight that defied explanation. The dimensional rift hung in space like a wound in reality itself. A spiraling vortex of impossible colors that hurt to observe directly. But that wasn't what captured everyone's attention. Surrounding the rift were ships, dozens of them. Geometric nightmares of black metal and green energy conduits, each one bristling with cutting beams and weapons ports. The designs were brutally efficient, stripped of any aesthetic consideration beyond pure function. "Borg," Worf snarled, his hand instinctively moving to weapons control. 27 cubes. Captain, we need to retreat immediately." Picard's face had gone pale, but his voice remained steady. "Belay that order. Mr. Data, analysis." The cubes appear to be in a holding pattern around the rift. Boss, they are not advancing, nor are they attempting to enter it. They are studying it. Data's fingers flew across his console. "Captain, I am detecting assimilation patterns on several asteroids in proximity to the Borg fleet. They are harvesting raw materials at an accelerated rate." "They're building something," Riker breathed. Jin-Woo materialized on the bridge. No transporter shimmer, just sudden presence that made half the crew reach for weapons. He stared at the view screen, at the geometric precision of the Borg armada, and the system immediately began threat assessment, or scanning hostile entities. Species, Borg collective, cybernetic hive mind. Individual drone threat level, drone, collective coordination, sewer adaptation, protocols, active. Warning, extreme danger to conventional forces. Shadow Army advantage. High, Borg have no defense against dimensional assault. Recommendation, eliminate before adaptation occurs. Those are the Borg, Jin-Woo said flatly. It wasn't a question. 27 cubes, Picard confirmed, each one capable of assimilating an entire planet. We faced a single cube 3 years ago and barely survived with the help of... He paused, old pain flickering across his features. With help we can't rely on now. Jin-Woo studied the formation, his tactical mind analyzing patterns, weaknesses, objectives. They're not interested in you. They want the rift. Indeed, data confirmed. Sensor analysis suggests they are attempting to decode the dimensional breach's properties. If they succeed in understanding its mechanics, they could open rifts at will, Jin-Woo finished. Travel between universes, assimilate infinite realities. His expression darkened. That can't happen. Agreed, Picard said. But 27 cubes represent overwhelming force. Even with your abilities, Mr. Sung, I cannot ask you to face that alone. Jin-Woo turned to face the captain, and for the first time, Picard saw the full weight of power behind those eyes. Ancient, vast, utterly uncompromising. You're not asking. I'm telling you. They don't get to weaponize dimensional travel. I've fought world-ending threats before. His hand moved, and shadow erupted across the bridge. Not threatening, but demonstrative. From the darkness emerged a figure that made even Worf step back. Beru manifested in full battle form. 15 feet of chitinous armor, blade-like limbs that could bisect steel, multifaceted eyes that gleamed with vicious intelligence. The Ant King's presence radiated predatory hunger. Finally, Beru's telepathic voice boomed across the bridge, audible to everyone. My king permits us to feast on worthy prey. The Shadow Army hungers. Sweet mother of... LaForge whispered, his visor struggling to process the entity's energy signature. Counselor Troy swayed, gripping her console. Captain, the emotional resonance from that creature. It's not malicious, it's loyal, fanatically loyal. But the capacity for violence is... She couldn't finish. Jin-Woo rested a hand on Beru's armored carapace. The Borg adapt to weapons, energy, kinetic, biological. But they've never faced dimensional assault. My shadows don't just attack in three-dimensional space. We strike from angles their sensors can't detect, through layers of reality their shielding can't protect. Data's eyes widened with realization. You intend to phase your army through subspace directly into the cube's interiors, bypassing shields entirely. Exactly. Jin-Woo's smile was cold and sharp. They can't adapt to an attack vector they can't perceive. And even if they could... He gestured, and the air filled with shadowy forms, hundreds of soldiers materializing in perfect formation across the bridge, each one radiating lethal competence. I have 10 million soldiers. They're outnumbered. Worf laughed, a bark of genuine admiration. You are either the bravest warrior I have ever met, or the most insane. Why not both? Jin-Woo dismissed the shadow soldiers with a thought. But I'm not doing this for glory. Those cubes are between us and the rift. If we're going to close that breach in 72 hours, I need to remove the obstacle. Picard stood, decision crystallizing. Then we fight together. The Enterprise will provide tactical support, targeting data, and covering fire. But Mr. Sung Jin-Woo, if at any point this becomes unwinnable, we retreat. Understood? Jin-Woo met his gaze levelly. I don't retreat, but I'll keep your ship safe. He turned toward the view screen, and shadows began pooling at his feet, spreading across the bridge deck like living darkness. Get me close enough to deploy the army, then stay back and watch. Captain, Worf interrupted, his tactical display lighting up with red alerts. The Borg have detected us. 3 cubes are breaking formation and moving to intercept. Time to weapons range, 4 minutes. Red alert, all hands to battle stations. Picard's voice carried the weight of command through every deck. Shields maximum. Charge all phaser banks and load quantum torpedoes. Helm, attack pattern Delta 7. The Enterprise surged forward, and Jin-Woo felt the ship's power systems thrum beneath his feet. Impressive technology, but still bound by physical laws. His shadows had no such limitations. My king, Ygriss' voice resonated in his mind. Grant us permission to manifest. We will paint the void with their shattered husks. Not yet, Jin-Woo responded. Let them come closer. I want all 3 cubes in deployment range. The first Borg cube filled the view screen, a 2-kilometer monstrosity of geometric horror. Green energy pulses rippled across its surface as thousands of drones coordinated with inhuman precision. They're hailing us, Data reported, surprise evident in his tone. Audio only. On screen. The bridge speakers crackled with the Borg's characteristic multi-voice harmony. Thousands speaking as one, male and female, young and old, all layered into a chorus of assimilation. We are the Borg. Your biological and technological distinctiveness will be added to our own. Resistance is futile. Then, shockingly, the voice shifted focus. Dimensional anomaly designated Sung Jin-Woo. Your quantum signature is unique. Your adaptive technology is unique. You will be assimilated. Your army will be assimilated. On all shadows will serve the collective. Jin-Woo's expression didn't change, but those who knew him, or rather, those learning to read him, saw the subtle shift, the slight narrowing of eyes, the microscopic tension in his jaw. He was offended. Tell them, Jin-Woo said quietly to Picard, that I've faced gods and monsters. I've killed beings that existed before their civilization crawled from whatever primordial soup spawned them. And I've never been assimilated by anything. Picard nodded to Data, who opened the channel. Borg Collective, this is Captain Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise. You will withdraw from this sector immediately, or face consequences you cannot adapt to. Silence. Then, irrelevant. Adaptation begins now. The 3 Borg cubes opened fire simultaneously. The cutting beams lanced across space, coherent energy streams capable of slicing through starship hulls like paper. The Enterprise's shields flared brilliant blue, absorbing the initial assault. But the power drain was immediate and catastrophic. Shields down to 72%. LaForge's voice crackled over the comm. Captain, we can't sustain this kind of bombardment. Return fire, all weapons. The Enterprise's phaser arrays blazed to life, orange-gold beams converging on the nearest cube. Quantum torpedoes streaked from the forward launcher, each one carrying the destructive potential of small nuclear weapons. They impacted the Borg shields in cascading explosions of blue-white fury. The cube's shields flickered, then held, already adapting. Direct hit, minimal damage, Worf reported grimly. Their shields are rotating frequencies. They're adapting to our weapons. Jin-Woo watched the battle with clinical detachment, the system feeding him tactical data faster than the Enterprise's computers could process. He saw the pattern. The Borg were efficient, coordinated, relentless. But they were predictable. They followed algorithms, adaptation protocols, logical progressions. He didn't. "That's enough," Jin-Woo said. He stepped forward, and shadow exploded from his body like a tidal wave of darkness. It swept across the bridge, through the walls, expanding beyond the Enterprise's hull into the void of space itself. The darkness spread, and within it, 10,000 eyes opened. Then 100,000. Then 1,000,000. "Arise," Jin-Woo commanded, his voice resonating with power that made the Enterprise's hull vibrate. And the army answered. They poured from shadow like a flood of nightmares made real. Knights in obsidian armor, mages crackling with dark energy, archers with bows carved from solidified darkness, massive tanks whose shields could withstand orbital bombardment, assassins that flickered between dimensions, and titans whose footsteps shook reality itself. Beru led the vanguard, his chitinous form expanding to starship scale, mandibles capable of rending steel clicking with anticipation. Igris manifested beside his king, blade drawn, a warrior who had slain armies and would slay armies again. Iron appeared, shield raised, ready to protect his master against any threat. And behind them, 1,000,000 more. 2,000,000, 5,000,000. An army that stretched across space like a living constellation of death and shadow. On the bridge, a crew member stared in absolute silence. "Mother of God," Riker whispered. Data's fingers were frozen above his console. "Captain, sensors are detecting 5.2 million individual entities, each one registering power signatures equivalent to heavy combat mechs. The collective energy output is..." He recalculated, certain he'd made an error. "Equivalent to a supernova." Picard couldn't speak. In all his years exploring the galaxy, facing the impossible and the incomprehensible, he had never witnessed anything like this. Jin-Woo stood at the center of the bridge, calm as still water, one hand raised. "The Borg wanted to assimilate my army," he said quietly. "Let's see them try." His hand fell. The Shadow Army moved as one, a coordinated assault that no conventional force could have countered. They didn't fly toward the cubes. They simply appeared inside them, phasing through shields and hull armor via subspace transit, materializing in corridors and chambers where Borg drones stood in perfect rows. The slaughter was methodical. Shadow Knights cut through drones with blades that ignored personal shielding. Mages unleashed dimensional energy that Borg adaptation protocols couldn't account for. Archers fired arrows that struck from angles that didn't exist in three-dimensional space. And most devastating of all, Jin-Woo could extract shadows from the drones themselves. Every Borg drone that fell rose again as a shadow soldier, loyal only to the Shadow Monarch. The collective's greatest strength, its overwhelming numbers, became its weakness. The more drones Jin-Woo's army destroyed, the larger his army grew. Warning, adaptation failing, and dimensional assault parameters unknown. Casualties exceeding regeneration capacity. Warning, warning. For the first time in Borg history, the collective experienced something unfamiliar. Fear. The Borg cube designated Tactical Sphere 634 had assimilated 312 species across 4,000 star systems. Its computational matrix processed 10 to the 15th power calculations per second. Its drones numbered 64,000, each one a node in a network of perfect coordination. It had faced Federation fleets, Romulan warbirds, Species 8472's bioships, and adapted to every threat. But it had never faced an enemy that turned death itself into a weapon. Igris materialized in the cube's central chamber, his black blade singing through the air. The first drone turned to assimilate him. Nanoprobes extending, adaptation protocols initiating. The knight's sword removed its head before the protocols could complete their first cycle. The body collapsed, and shadow leaked from the corpse like black blood. Then the corpse stood up, and the newly risen shadow drone turned on its former collective, assimilation tubules now channels for dimensional energy. It grabbed the nearest Borg and simply unmade it, not destroying, but converting. Shadow to shadow, death to death. Impossible, the collective's voice echoed through the cube's corridors. Assimilation counter protocols failing. Reanimation of deceased units detected. Adaptation. The word trailed off as Beru crashed through 3 decks simultaneously, his massive form carving a path of destruction. The Ant King's mandibles closed on a Borg alcove, crushing 6 drones into scrap metal and failing cybernetics. His telepathic laughter boomed through subspace. Your machines are brittle. Your flesh is weak. We are shadow. We are eternal. Adapt to that. Aboard the Enterprise, the crew watched in stunned silence as the 3 Borg cubes began to fragment. Not explode. That would have been comprehensible. Instead, they were being systematically dismantled from within, entire sections going dark as shadow soldiers severed power conduits, destroyed regeneration alcoves, and converted drones faster than the collective could respond. Tactical analysis, Picard ordered, his voice tight. Worf's hands moved across his console with shaking precision. The Borg are attempting to adapt. I'm reading over 4,000 distinct frequency modulations in their shields, weapons modifications, and drone enhancement protocols. But he paused, disbelief coloring his tone. None of it is working. The shadow entities are not attacking from normal space. They're phasing through barriers and striking from dimensional angles the Borg cannot protect against. Data's golden eyes tracked the battle with perfect clarity. Captain, the Shadow Army is not simply destroying the Borg. They are assimilating them. I am detecting former Borg drones now functioning as shadow soldiers, their technological components converted into conduits for dimensional energy. He's turning their strength against them. Riker breathed. The Borg assimilate species. Jin-Woo assimilates the Borg. Counselor Troy's empathic senses were overwhelmed. I can feel the collective's response. It's confused, frightened. The Borg have never encountered an enemy they cannot understand, cannot adapt to, cannot eventually overcome. Jin-Woo represents an absolute counter to their entire existence. On the bridge, Jin-Woo stood motionless, eyes distant as he coordinated 5 million simultaneous battles across 3 cubic kilometers of Borg infrastructure. The system displayed tactical data in cascading streams. Engagement analysis. Enemy drones eliminated, 127,438. Shadow extraction success rate, 94.7%. New shadow soldiers acquired, 120,724, Borg variant. Enemy adaptation attempts, 4,337. Successful adaptations, 0. Estimated time to complete victory, 14 minutes. Jin-Woo allowed himself a grim smile. The Borg were formidable. Their coordination was flawless, their response time instantaneous, their tactical database vast. But they were still fighting a war of attrition and adaptation. He was fighting a war of fundamental incompatibility. You cannot adapt to an enemy that operates on principles your universe doesn't acknowledge. My king, Ygris's voice cut through the tactical noise. The central cube is attempting to retreat. They are initiating transwarp drive. Jin-Woo's eyes snapped to the view screen. The largest cube, the one not yet engaged, was beginning to generate a transwarp conduit. a green vortex of faster-than-light escape forming in space before it. "They're running," LaForge reported, sensors confirming what Jin-Woo already knew. "The remaining 24 cubes are breaking formation. They're abandoning the rift." "Don't let them escape," Jin-Woo said coldly. "If even one cube returns to the collective with data on my army, they'll find a way to adapt. Better to end this now." Picard turned sharply. "Jin-Woo, those cubes could scatter in 24 different directions. You cannot possibly. Watch me." Jin-Woo raised both hands. Bruce and the system responded to his will. The Shadow Army, now numbering over 5 million active soldiers, plus the newly converted Borg variants, surged outward through subspace. They didn't travel to the cubes. They simply appeared inside them, bypassing distance itself. 24 Borg cubes simultaneously went dark as shadow soldiers manifested in their cores, their command nodes, their regeneration centers. The collective screams echoed across subspace frequencies, a sound the Enterprise's comm systems picked up and translated into something the crew would never forget. We, error, adaptation failure, consciousness fragmenting, I am. For the first time in millennia, individual Borg drones experienced separation from the collective, not freedom, death, followed by resurrection as something else entirely. Shadow consumed machine, darkness overwrote programming, and the Borg, who had once declared resistance futile, discovered what true futility felt like. 14 minutes later, exactly as the system predicted, the last Borg drone fell. 27 cubes hung in space, completely dark, completely lifeless. And from their shattered hulls, an army of shadow emerged. No longer Borg, no longer individual, but eternal soldiers bound to the Shadow Monarch's will. Jin-Woo lowered his hands, and the army began to dissolve, returning to the dimensional storage from which they'd come. Baru was the last to fade, his chitinous form shrinking back to normal proportions as he manifested briefly on the Enterprise bridge. "A fine hunt, my king." The machine flesh tasted strange, but satisfying. The Ant King bowed deeply. "We await your next command." "Rest," Jin-Woo said simply. "You've earned it." Baru vanished into shadow, leaving only the Enterprise crew and their guest standing in shocked silence. Picard was the first to find his voice. You just destroyed an entire Borg armada, 27 cubes, without taking a single casualty." "I didn't destroy them," Jin-Woo corrected quietly. "I recruited them. My army is now approximately 120,000 soldiers larger. The Borg's technology, tactical knowledge, and adaptation protocols are all now stored in my shadow variants. They wanted to assimilate me." His smile was cold. "I assimilated them instead." Worf stared at Jin-Woo with an expression caught between horror and profound respect. "In Klingon culture, we have legends of warriors so powerful they could face entire armies alone. I always believed them to be myths. I was wrong." "Mr. Sung," Data said carefully, "the implications of what you just demonstrated are staggering. You have effectively neutralized the single greatest threat the Federation faces. The Borg will undoubtedly analyze this defeat and attempt to develop countermeasures. But you have proven that their adaptation is not infinite. You have shown they can be beaten." "Maybe," Jin-Woo acknowledged. "But that wasn't the point. The point was removing the obstacle between us and the rift." He turned to face the view screen, where the dimensional breach still pulsed ominously. "We have," he checked the system, 68 hours before that tears reality apart. "The Borg are gone. Now we can focus on the real problem. Riker leaned forward. Do we even know how to close it yet? Working on it. LaForge's voice crackled over the comm from engineering. But Captain, I've got something weird here. During the battle, I was monitoring the rift's energy signature. When Jin-Woo deployed his army, the rift's expansion rate slowed down by almost 40%. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. The rift responded to my shadows? Not just responded, stabilized temporarily. It's like your dimensional energy was counteracting whatever's keeping it open. LaForge paused. If we could generate a sustained shadow field around the entire rift, we could seal it from this side, Data finished. But the power requirements would be immense. Even with your army, maintaining a stable field for the 18 minutes required would strain. I can handle it, Jin-Woo interrupted. But there's something else. Geordi said the rift stabilized when I deployed the army. That means it's not just a tear. It's being held open by active force. Something on the other side is preventing it from closing naturally. Picard's expression grew grave. You're suggesting this wasn't an accident. Someone deliberately created this breach. And they're maintaining it, Jin-Woo confirmed. Which means to truly close it, we need to address the source, not just patch the symptom. Troi spoke up, her empathic senses reaching toward the rift itself, a feat that should have been impossible across empty space. But the dimensional instability was bleeding emotions across realities. I'm sensing intent, malevolent intent. Something on the other side is aware of us. It's waiting. Waiting for what? Riker demanded. The answer came not from the Enterprise crew, but from the rift itself. Without warning, the dimensional breach flared brilliant crimson, expanding in a sudden violent pulse. And through it, something emerged. It wasn't a ship. It was a figure, humanoid in shape but wrong in every proportion. 15 feet tall, wrapped in armor that seemed carved from frozen darkness, with eyes that burned like dying stars. Power radiated from it in waves that made the Enterprise's shields scream proximity alarms. The system's alert blazed across Jin-Woo's vision. Warning, Monarch-class entity detected. Species unknown. Threat level SSS. Designation, Architect Variant, Dimensional Breach Controller. Objective, prevent breach closure. Power signature analysis, comparable to Shadow Monarch. Jin-Woo's blood went cold. An Architect Variant. The entities that had created the system, that had orchestrated the war between monarchs and rulers. He'd thought they were gone, destroyed, or transcended after the final battle. But if one had survived, if one had learned to open dimensional rifts. The figure's voice boomed across subspace, reaching into every mind on the Enterprise simultaneously, not sound, but pure thought. Shadow Monarch, you were not meant to escape your designated reality. Your presence here disrupts the experiment. Yet you will return, or you will be eliminated. Jin-Woo stepped forward, shadow already pooling at his feet. I don't take orders from anyone, especially not from ghosts that should have stayed dead. The figure raised one hand, and space itself began to crack. Reality fractured along invisible fault lines, and through the cracks, more entities emerged, not architects, but soldiers. Dimensional warriors clad in armor of crystallized time, wielding weapons that cut through multiple realities simultaneously. Then you will be eliminated, and this universe will serve as the next testing ground. Picard's voice was steady despite the nightmare unfolding before them. Mr. Sung, what is that thing? An architect, Jin-Woo replied grimly. The beings that created the system, that orchestrated the war between monarchs. I thought they were gone. I was wrong. Can you defeat it? Jin-Woo watched as 100-dimensional soldiers formed ranks behind the architect, each one radiating power comparable to high-level hunters from his world. The math was simple. He could fight them, probably win. But the cost? I can fight it, he said slowly. But if I go all out, the dimensional instability could collapse this entire sector. Everything within 10 light years could be pulled into the rift. Unacceptable, Picard said immediately. There are 14 inhabited systems in this sector. Billions of lives. Then we need a better plan. Jin-Woo's mind raced. The architect was maintaining the rift. If he could destroy it, the breach would close. But the dimensional soldiers were a delaying tactic, meant to keep him occupied while the architect completed whatever experiment it had planned. Unless... Captain, Jin-Woo said suddenly, how fast can this ship go? Maximum warp is 9.6. Why? Because I have an idea, and it's probably insane. Jin-Woo turned to face Picard directly. The architect is maintaining the rift from outside normal space, partially in subspace, partially in the dimensional void between realities. Your ship can't reach it there, but I can. You're proposing to fight that thing in its own domain? Riker's voice was incredulous. No, I'm proposing to drag it into yours. Jin-Woo's smile was sharp and vicious. The architect is powerful in the spaces between dimensions. But in normal space, bound by this universe's physical laws, it's vulnerable. I pull it through, you hit it with everything you've got, and I finish it while it's disoriented. Worf's grin was savage. I like this plan. It's risky, Data cautioned. If the architect fully manifests in our reality, the dimensional backlash could be catastrophic, yes. Jin-Woo finished. But leaving it to continue its experiment is guaranteed catastrophe. At least this way, we control the battlefield. Picard studied the young man before him, a being of immense power, offering to risk everything for a universe not his own. It reminded him why he'd joined Starfleet in the first place, to stand beside people who chose courage over safety. Make it happen, Picard ordered. All hands, prepare for combat against unknown hostile. Mr. Sung, you'll have all the support we can provide. Jin-Woo nodded once. Then he turned to face the architect, shadows gathering around him like a storm. "Andar, you said I would return or be eliminated," he called out to the dimensional entity. "Here's a third option. I eliminate you, close the rift, and make sure no architect ever threatens any universe again." The architect's burning eyes narrowed. "Arrogant Shadow. You will learn your place." "I already know my place," Jin-Woo replied coldly. "Standing between threats and the people who can't fight them. It's what I've always done." He raised both hands, and the full might of the Shadow Monarch erupted into being. The void between dimensions was a place where reality had no meaning. Time flowed backward and forward simultaneously. Space folded into impossible geometries. Light existed as solid matter, while darkness burned like fire. It was here, in this realm of contradictions, that the architect held dominion. And it was here that Sung Jin-Woo stepped willingly. His physical body remained on the Enterprise bridge, but his consciousness, his true self as the Shadow Monarch, extended through the layers of subspace, piercing the dimensional barriers until he stood in the space between spaces. The system interface flickered, struggling to maintain coherence in an environment that rejected logical structure. Warning: dimensional coherence at 73%. Maintaining physical anchor in prime reality. Shadow Authority operating at maximum capacity. Detecting hostile presence. The architect manifested before him, no longer constrained by the limitations of appearing in normal space. Here, In its domain, it was vast, not physically larger, but conceptually infinite. Its form shifted between states: warrior, scientist, god, machine, all at once and none at the same time. Foolish Shadow Monarch. The architect's voice resonated through dimensions Jin-Woo couldn't name. In this realm, I am absolute. Your power means nothing here. Jin-Woo smiled, and shadows erupted from his essence. Not the shadows of his world, or even of Star Trek's universe, but the primordial darkness that existed before reality itself. The power of the original Shadow Monarch, and the being who had ruled death long before the architect's experiments began. You're wrong, Jin-Woo said quietly. Shadows exist everywhere, even between dimensions, especially between dimensions. He struck, not with soldiers or weapons, but with pure conceptual force. The assertion that death, darkness, and shadow were fundamental constants that transcended individual realities. The architect reeled, its form fracturing into recursive patterns as Jin-Woo's attack bypassed its dimensional defenses. Impossible. The Shadow Monarch's authority was bound to your reality. You should not be able to... I inherited the full power. Jin-Woo interrupted, pressing his advantage. Not just the system's game mechanics, the true essence of what the Shadow Monarch was. And that essence doesn't need mana or subspace or any specific energy. It just is. He reached out, and his hand closed around something the architect hadn't expected him to perceive. The dimensional anchor maintaining the rift. It appeared as a crystalline structure of frozen time, pulsing with stolen energy from both universes. Jin-Woo crushed it. The architect's scream shattered across 17 dimensions simultaneously. The rift in normal space convulsed, its expansion halting as the sustaining force was severed. But more importantly, the architect's connection to the void between dimensions weakened, just as Jin-Woo had planned. You wanted to keep me here while your soldiers attacked the Enterprise, Jin-Woo said, his voice cold with calculation. But I'm not here to fight you in your domain. I'm here to drag you into mine. He moved with speed that transcended physics, while closing the distance between himself and the architect. His hands, no, his entire being, wrapped around the entity's essence, and he pulled. Not physically, but conceptually, asserting that the architect existed in normal space, that it was bound by the laws of conventional reality, that it was mortal. The architect resisted, its power flaring in desperate defense. But Jin-Woo had something it didn't: experience fighting opponents who broke rules. The monarchs, the rulers, the system itself, all of them had been entities that defied conventional understanding. And he'd beaten them all. Release me. You cannot... I can. Jin-Woo snarled. And I will. He pulled harder, channeling every ounce of his power into one overwhelming assertion. You are real. You are physical. You are here. Reality bent, then broke. Aboard the Enterprise, Captain Picard was coordinating defensive maneuvers against the 100-dimensional soldiers streaming from the rift when Data's console exploded with alerts. Captain, massive energy surge from the rift. Something is being pulled through from... The view screen erupted in blinding white light. When it cleared, the architect hung in normal space, fully manifested, and it was screaming. Its form was unstable, flickering between states as the laws of Star Trek's universe forced it into coherent shape. The armor of frozen darkness began to solidify, becoming something the Enterprise's sensors could actually measure. The burning eyes dimmed to merely incandescent, and most critically, it became vulnerable. Jin-Woo's consciousness snapped back to his physical body on the bridge, and he staggered slightly. The first sign of strain he'd shown. but his eyes blazed with triumph. "Now," he shouted, "hit it with everything." Picard didn't hesitate. "All weapons, fire!" The Enterprise unleashed hell. Phaser arrays blazed across every frequency simultaneously, not trying to find a weakness, but simply overwhelming with raw power. Quantum torpedoes streaked from launchers, each one calibrated to detonate at maximum yield. Photon torpedoes followed, creating a cascade of matter-antimatter explosions that would have vaporized lesser targets. The Architect's shields, now forced to operate within conventional physics, flared and buckled. Damage indicators appeared on Data's console, something that should have been impossible against an entity of such power. "Direct hits," Worf roared, his warrior's blood singing with the thrill of actually hurting an invincible enemy. "Shield strength at 47% and dropping." But the dimensional soldiers weren't idle. They swarmed toward the Enterprise, weapons raised, crystalline blades that cut through space itself, energy lances that ignored conventional shielding, and worse. Some of them began phasing directly through the hull. Intruder alert. Security warnings blared throughout the ship. Decks 4, 7, 11, and 15. Unknown hostiles breaching internal compartments. Jin-Woo's response was immediate. He raised one hand, and shadow soldiers poured forth. Not millions this time, but precisely allocated forces. Knights materialized on Deck 4, engaging the dimensional soldiers in brutal close combat. Mages appeared on Deck 7, countering exotic energy attacks with dimensional magic of their own. Assassins flickered into existence on Deck 11, striking from angles the invaders couldn't predict. And on Deck 15, where the largest concentration of enemies had manifested, Baru appeared in full glory. The Ant King filled the corridor, his chitinous bulk crushing two-dimensional soldiers simply by manifesting. His mandibles snapped shut on a third, and the crystalline warrior shattered like glass. His telepathic roar echoed through every deck. "This is our king's ship. You will not defile it with your presence." On the bridge, Jin-Woo coordinated both battles simultaneously, his shadow army defending the Enterprise while he personally focused on the Architect. The entity was recovering from its forced transition, adapting to normal space with terrifying speed. "Clever, Shadow Monarch," the Architect's voice boomed, now audible through normal sound rather than dimensional telepathy. But adaptation is not your exclusive domain. I have studied 10,000 realities. I have transcended 1,000,000 species. I will not fall to... Jin-Woo teleported. One moment he was on the bridge. The next, he stood in space directly before the Architect, shadows swirling around him in a protective barrier that substituted for environmental protection. His hand materialized the Demon King's daggers, legendary weapons forged from darkness itself. "You talk too much," Jin-Woo said flatly. He struck with speed that made light look stationary. The daggers, empowered by his full authority as Shadow Monarch, bit into the Architect's armor. Not deep, the entity was still immensely powerful, but enough to draw something that approximated blood. Luminous energy that existed in multiple spectrums simultaneously leaked from the wound. The Architect's counterattack was instantaneous. Its hand lashed out, reality warping around the blow, and even Jin-Woo's superhuman speed barely let him dodge. The strike missed him by inches, but continued past, hitting a derelict Borg cube floating in the distance. The cube ceased to exist, not destroyed, erased, as if it had never been. "I may be constrained by your reality's laws," the Architect said, "but I still command forces you cannot comprehend." "Then let me show you what I comprehend," Jin-Woo replied. He stabbed both daggers into the void, and shadow erupted from the wounds in space itself. Not his soldiers, pure shadow essence, the fundamental force he commanded. It wrapped around the architect like chains, binding it, constraining it further. The architect thrashed, its powers surging, but Jin-Woo held firm. His eyes began to glow with silver-black light, the sign of a Shadow Monarch exerting maximum authority. "Arise," he commanded, speaking directly to the dimensional soldiers his forces had killed aboard the Enterprise. The dead warriors convulsed, then rose. Their crystalline armor turned to shadow, their exotic weapons reforming into darkness-forged equivalents. And their loyalty shifted absolutely to Jin-Woo. "No!" The architect's voice carried genuine shock. "They are my creations. They cannot be. Everything that dies becomes mine," Jin-Woo said coldly. "That's what it means to be the Shadow Monarch. Death bows to me, and you just brought 100 soldiers for me to recruit." The newly converted Shadow soldiers turned on their former master. Some phased back through the Enterprise's hull to assault the remaining dimensional warriors. Others manifested in space, attacking the architect from every angle. Aboard the bridge, Picard watched the impossible battle unfold. "Status report. Intruders on all decks are being eliminated," Worf reported, savage satisfaction in his voice. "Jin-Woo's Shadow soldiers are efficient, brutal, but efficient. The rift is destabilizing," Data called out. With the architect's anchor destroyed and its concentration diverted to combat, the dimensional breach is beginning to collapse on its own. However, the rate of collapse may tear the architect back into the void before we can destroy it. "Unacceptable," Picard said immediately. "If it escapes, it could recreate the rift elsewhere, threaten other universes. We end this now. Geordi, can we augment our weapons with Jin-Woo's shadow energy?" LaForge's voice crackled over the comm, breathless with excitement. "Captain, that's crazy. That's brilliant. That's... Yes. If we can channel shadow energy through the phaser array, we could hit the architect with dimensional force from our weapons. It wouldn't be able to adapt because we're mixing two incompatible power sources." "Make it happen, Mr. Sung," Picard called out, though Jin-Woo was no longer physically present on the bridge. "We need to channel your power through our weapons. Can you..." Jin-Woo's voice resonated through subspace, audible to all. "Already on it. Igris, Iron, merge with the ship's systems." The two most powerful Night-class shadows materialized in engineering, their forms shifting, becoming less solid and more energy. They poured into the Enterprise's power conduits, their essence mixing with the ship's warp core output. Alarms shrieked throughout engineering as power readings spiked beyond safety margins. "Containment fields at 140%, a technician shouted. "We're going to breach." "Hold them," LaForge commanded, his hands flying across consoles. "Rerouting shadow energy to weapons grid. Captain, you've got maybe one shot before this blows half the ship apart." On the view screen, Jin-Woo was being pressed hard. The architect had adapted to his daggers, creating shields that could partially deflect shadow attacks. The entity's counterstrikes were becoming more precise, forcing Jin-Woo into increasingly desperate defensive maneuvers. One blast caught him in the shoulder, and even his Shadow Monarch physiology couldn't completely negate it. Yet pain lanced through him, real burning pain from an attack that targeted his existence itself. But pain was old news to Jin-Woo. He'd died once. Pain was just information. "Captain," he called out, "whatever you're planning, do it now." Picard's voice was steel. "Target locked. All power to forward phaser array. Fire." The Enterprise's main phaser bank discharged, but not the familiar orange-gold energy. This beam was black, shot through with silver light, a hybrid of Federation technology and Shadow Monarch authority. It crossed the distance in an instant, striking the architect's center mass. The entity's scream shattered viewports on 3 nearby derelict Borg cubes. Its shields, designed to adapt to conventional energy, couldn't process the contradictory nature of the attack. The beam punched through, burning into the architect's core. Jin-Woo saw his opening. He surged forward, daggers raised, and drove both blades into the wound the Enterprise had created. Then he poured everything he had, all his power, all his authority, all his will, into a single, devastating attack. "Arise," he commanded, but not to raise the dead. This time, he was commanding the architect's own essence, asserting dominance over its existence, claiming it as he would claim any fallen enemy. The architect thrashed in denial, its power exploding outward in a desperate final surge. The backlash caught Jin-Woo fully, hurling him backward through space with force that would have liquefied a normal human. His shadow barrier cracked, then shattered. But his blades remained embedded in the architect's core, and through those blades, his will continued to pour. "You cannot. I am eternal." "Nothing's eternal," Jin-Woo gasped, blood freezing on his lips in the vacuum. "Everything dies. Everything ends. And when it does..." His eyes blazed pure silver. "It belongs to me." The architect's form began to dissolve, breaking apart into streams of shadow that flowed into Jin-Woo's daggers, through them into his essence. The entity that had orchestrated experiments across dimensions, that had created the system itself, was being absorbed into the very weapon it had inadvertently created. "No, this is not. The experiment must..." Its voice faded, then vanished. The architect's physical form collapsed into pure shadow essence, and Jin-Woo breathed it in like smoke, adding its power to his own. The system interface exploded with notifications. Architect variant defeated. Shadow extraction success. Massive experience gained. Level up, level up, level up. New title acquired. Dimensional sovereign. New skill acquired. Reality enforcement. Shadow army capacity increased. System evolution initiating. Jin-Woo floated in space, breathing hard, his body regenerating from the damage he'd taken. The remaining dimensional soldiers, their master destroyed, began to fade. Constructs without a controlling intelligence. "Jin-Woo." Troy's voice reached him through his communication link with the Enterprise. "The rift is collapsing. You need to get clear." He turned to look at the dimensional breach. It was indeed collapsing, reality sealing itself like a healing wound. But something was wrong. The collapse was accelerating too fast, creating a gravitational anomaly that was pulling in everything nearby. Debris, Borg wreckage, and if left unchecked, the Enterprise itself. "Captain," Jin-Woo said tiredly, "you need to get out of here. That rift is going to implode in about 90 seconds. And when it does, it's taking everything within 1,000 kilometers with it." "We're not leaving you," Picard said firmly. "You have to. I can survive the implosion. Dimensional forces can't kill me. But your ship can't." Jin-Woo summoned shadow soldiers around himself, preparing to create a barrier. "Go. I'll seal it from this side and catch up." There was a long pause. Then Picard's voice, heavy with respect. "You have my word, Mr. Sung. We will not abandon you. We'll retrieve you the moment it's safe. Helm, warp 9, maximum distance from the rift. They engage." The Enterprise streaked away, leaving Jin-Woo alone amid the collapsing dimensional breach. He raised both hands, and 10,000 shadow soldiers manifested around him, forming a living wall. Behind them, 100,000 more. Then 1,000,000. "Together," he told them, "we seal this permanently." The rift's implosion accelerated, reality crushing inward with force equivalent to a collapsing star. Jin-Woo and his army pushed back, shadow essence forming a counterpressure that fought the collapse. For a moment, the forces were balanced. Then Jin-Woo smiled. Full army deployment. 10 million shadow soldiers erupted into existence simultaneously, and their combined power didn't just resist the implosion, it reversed it. The rift didn't collapse. It was forced closed, sealed from both sides. The dimensional barriers reinforced with shadow essence that would prevent anything from tearing through again. The explosion of released energy was visible from 3 star systems away. When it cleared, the rift was gone. Reality was whole, and Sung Jin-Woo floated in the void, surrounded by his army, victorious. The system chimed one final time. Quest complete. Close dimensional breach. Rewards calculating. The Enterprise's sickbay had treated countless injuries across hundreds of species. Klingon battle wounds, Vulcan nerve damage, Betazoid psychic trauma, even Q-induced temporal paradoxes. But Dr. Beverly Crusher had never treated someone who just sealed a dimensional rift with his bare hands while surviving the equivalent of a supernova at point-blank range. Jin-Woo sat on the biobed, apparently unconcerned that his left arm was regenerating from the elbow down in real time. Shadow essence knitted bone, muscle, and skin with visible efficiency. The process both fascinating and deeply unsettling to watch. Remarkable, Crusher murmured, medical tricorder chirping with confused readings. Your cellular regeneration rate is... I don't even have a frame of reference. You should be dead. Multiple times over. I've been dead before, Jin-Woo said mildly, watching his fingers regrow. It didn't stick. The reports from the bridge said you were exposed to vacuum for over 3 minutes, subjected to dimensional forces that should have torn you apart at the molecular level, and caught in an implosion with energy output equivalent to 10 to the power of 44 joules. Crusher set down her tricorder, looking at him with professional concern mixed with genuine bewilderment. How are you even conscious right now? Jin-Woo flexed his newly regenerated hand, testing the connection. Perfect. I'm the Shadow Monarch. Death is kinda my thing. It doesn't work on me the way it works on normal people. The sickbay doors hissed open, and Picard entered with Data and Troy. The captain's expression was composed, but Troy could sense the profound relief beneath his diplomatic exterior. Mr. Sung, Picard said warmly, I'm pleased to see you survived. Told you I would. Jin-Woo stood from the biobed, rolling his shoulders. The system had already confirmed full recovery. All stats returned to maximum. How's the ship? Minor damage from the dimensional soldier's incursion, but nothing we can't repair, Picard replied. Thanks in no small part to your shadows defending our crew. Commander Worf reports 0 casualties. The invaders were neutralized before they could reach populated sections. My king maintains his promise. Igris's voice resonated from Jin-Woo's shadow. We protect what is his to protect. Crusher jumped slightly at the disembodied voice. I don't think I'll ever get used to that. Data stepped forward, then his golden eyes bright with intellectual excitement. Jin-Woo, the dimensional rift is completely sealed. My scans indicate shadow essence has been woven into the fabric of space-time itself at that location. No conventional force could reopen it. However, I am detecting residual energy signatures that suggest the rift was not an isolated incident. Jin-Woo's expression darkened. You're saying there might be more architects out there, more experiments. The probability is significant, Data confirmed. The entity you destroyed referred to studying 10,000 realities. If that was not hyperbole, then multiple dimensional breaches may exist across the multiverse. Great, Jin-Woo muttered. Because one universe-ending threat wasn't enough. Troy moved closer, her empathic senses focused on Jin-Woo with clinical precision. And you're exhausted. Not physically, your body has recovered. But mentally, emotionally, you're carrying the weight of protecting multiple realities now. Jin-Woo met her eyes, and for a moment, the mask of the invincible Shadow Monarch slipped. Troy saw what lay beneath. A young man who'd shouldered impossible burdens, who'd sacrificed normal life for power and responsibility, who was tired in ways that sleep couldn't cure. "It's what I signed up for," he said quietly. "When I inherited the Shadow Monarch's power, I also inherited the duty. Protect humanity, fight the threats no one else can, even if it spans universes. That's a burden no one should carry alone," Picard said gently. "Which brings me to a proposal. The dimensional breach you sealed, it was targeting Federation space for a reason. The architects, or whatever remains of them, clearly view our universe as a viable testing ground. We need to understand these threats, and we need the capability to respond to future incursions." Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. "You're offering an alliance." "I'm offering partnership," Picard corrected. "Starfleet has resources, knowledge, and personnel across the galaxy. You have abilities that transcend conventional science. Together, we could establish early warning systems for dimensional breaches, develop countermeasures, perhaps even find a way to send you home safely. And in exchange, I become Starfleet's secret weapon against extra-dimensional threats," Jin-Woo said. Not accusatory, but matter-of-fact. "A hunter on retainer." "That's not," Picard began, but Jin-Woo raised a hand. "I'm not offended. It's practical. You need my power. I need your information network and scientific expertise." He paused, considering. "But I work independently. I'm not joining Starfleet, not taking orders from your chain of command. We cooperate as equals, or not at all." Data interjected thoughtfully. "That arrangement has precedent. Several individuals and organizations maintain cooperative relationships with the Federation without formal membership. The Klingon Empire, for example, maintains alliance status while retaining complete autonomy." Picard nodded slowly. "An independent operative with liaison status. You'd have access to Federation resources and intelligence, but no obligation to follow Starfleet protocols beyond basic diplomatic courtesy. And when our interests conflict," Jin-Woo pressed, "then we discuss it like rational beings and find compromise." Picard said, "I won't pretend conflicts won't arise, but I believe your fundamental goal, protecting innocent lives, aligns with the Federation's core values." Jin-Woo studied the captain for a long moment. He'd seen politicians, military commanders, and organizational leaders in his world. Most were corrupt, self-serving, or incompetent. Picard seemed different, genuinely idealistic, but not naively so. A man who'd seen the universe's darkness and chose to uphold principles anyway. "Provisional agreement," Jin-Woo said finally. "We work together on dimensional threats. I maintain full autonomy. If Starfleet Command tries to turn me into a weapon or a lab specimen, the agreement ends immediately." Picard extended his hand. "You have my word. And for what it's worth, I'll stand between you and anyone who tries to exploit you." Jin-Woo shook his hand firmly. "Then we have a deal." The system chimed softly. New quest generated. Title, Dimensional Guardian. Objective, establish partnership with United Federation of Planets. Status, complete. Reward, Federation. Crusher cleared her throat. "If we're done with the political negotiations, I'd like to run a few more scans, purely for medical documentation. Your regeneration capabilities could revolutionize our understanding of cellular repair. As long as you're not trying to replicate my powers, Jin-Woo said warily. Yeah, we're doctors, not weapons manufacturers, Crusher replied with a slight smile. Though I won't lie, understanding your physiology could save countless lives. Fine, but no invasive procedures. The system gets defensive when people try to cut me open. Data's head tilted. The system possesses defensive subroutines? It's more than just an interface, Jin-Woo explained, sitting back on the biobed. It's semi-sentient. It learns, adapts, protects. When the architect tried to override it earlier, the system counterattacked autonomously. I didn't even give it a command. The system interface flickered into visibility, her text scrolling across the holographic display. Correction. This unit operates within parameters established by Shadow Monarch Authority. All defensive actions align with Hunter's survival priorities. Semi-sentience designation acknowledged. It's also apparently developing a sense of humor, Jin-Woo added dryly. Picard chuckled. Perhaps it spent too much time analyzing our database. Commander Data has been known to experiment with humor subroutines. With limited success, Data admitted candidly. Before the conversation could continue, the ship's comm system activated. Bridge to Captain Picard. We're receiving a Priority 1 transmission from Starfleet Command. They're demanding an immediate report on the dimensional anomaly and... The communications officer paused, audibly surprised. They're specifically requesting information about the unidentified, superpowered individual detected in our sensor logs. Picard and Jin-Woo exchanged glances. So much for keeping a low profile, Jin-Woo muttered. In fairness, Data offered, your battle with the architect was visible from 3 star systems. Multiple civilian vessels detected the energy discharge. And the destruction of 27 Borg cubes in under 15 minutes has undoubtedly triggered every intelligence service in the quadrant. Word travels fast in the galaxy, Picard said with a slight grimace. And Starfleet Command will want answers, detailed answers. He tapped his comm badge. Acknowledged. Tell Command I'll transmit a full report within the hour. Picard out. Jin-Woo stood. They're going to want to meet me, aren't they? Almost certainly, Picard confirmed. Starfleet Command, Federation Council, possibly even the Vulcan Science Academy. You represent a paradigm shift in our understanding of reality. Every scientific and military organization in Federation space will want to study you, recruit you, or control me, Jin-Woo finished. I've dealt with that before. It doesn't end well for them. Troy placed a gentle hand on his arm. Not everyone in the Federation sees people as resources. Many of our leaders are genuinely good people who want to understand, not exploit. Maybe, Jin-Woo acknowledged. But I've learned to prepare for the worst, hope for the best, plan for betrayal. A cynical philosophy, Picard observed, but perhaps pragmatic given your experiences. Very well. I'll include your terms in my report. Independent operative status, no formal command structure, cooperation on mutual threats only. If they reject those terms, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. The ship suddenly shuddered. Red alert klaxons blaring. Bridge to Captain. 3 vessels decloaking off the starboard bow. Romulan signatures. Picard's expression hardened. Battle stations. I'm on my way. He turned to Jin-Woo. It seems we're about to test our partnership sooner than expected. Jin-Woo's eyes gleamed with cold light. Romulans. Data mentioned them. Espionage specialists, cloaking technology, paranoid isolationists. Accurate assessment. Data confirmed as they hurried toward the turbo lift. They must have been monitoring the dimensional rift. Our battle would have attracted their attention. And now they want to know what we know, Jin-Woo said. Or they want me for themselves. Troy's empathic senses reached out, touching the hostile intent emanating from the decloaking ships. They're afraid, deeply afraid, but also curious and desperate. Desperate people do stupid things, Jin-Woo muttered. The turbo lift doors opened onto the bridge, where Worf was already at tactical, weapons charged and ready. On the view screen, 3 Romulan warbirds hung in space, sleek, predatory vessels that radiated menace. "They're hailing us," the communications officer reported. "On screen," Picard ordered. The view screen shifted to show a Romulan commander, sharp features, calculating eyes, and an expression of barely controlled fury mixed with desperate curiosity. "That's Captain Picard," the Romulan said, his voice clipped and precise. "I am Commander Tomalak of the Romulan Star Empire. Your recent activities have been observed by our long-range sensors. We have questions about the dimensional breach, the destruction of Borg assets, and most importantly, the superpowered entity you're harboring." Picard's expression remained diplomatically neutral. "Commander Tomalak, the dimensional breach has been sealed and the Borg threat neutralized. As for my guest, he is here voluntarily and poses no threat to Romulan interests. That is not your determination to make," Tomalak replied coldly. The individual demonstrated the ability to destroy an entire Borg armada single-handedly. Such power represents an unacceptable variable in the Quadrant's balance of power, and we demand he be turned over to Romulan custody for evaluation. Jin-Woo stepped into the view screen's field of view, and Tomalak's eyes widened fractionally, the only sign of surprise he allowed himself. "I'm standing right here," Jin-Woo said flatly. "If you have questions, ask me directly. And for the record, I'm not going into anyone's custody. Not yours, not Starfleet's, not the Borg's. I'm not a weapon to be possessed." Tomalak's expression shifted to one of predatory interest. "You are the anomaly. The sensors do not do you justice. What are you?" "Someone who doesn't like being threatened," Jin-Woo replied, shadows beginning to pool at his feet. "You have 10 seconds to withdraw before I demonstrate exactly why threatening me is a bad idea. You dare." 7 seconds. Tomalak's face flushed with anger. "You are outnumbered on 3 Romulan warbirds against a single Federation vessel. Even with your abilities, 4 seconds. Picard stepped forward. "Commander Tomalak, I strongly advise." 2 seconds. Tomalak's hand moved toward his weapons console. Jin-Woo smiled. 0. Shadow erupted across the Enterprise bridge like a tidal wave of living darkness. But this time, Jin-Woo wasn't summoning his army. He was making a statement. The shadows poured through the view screen, not physically, but through the subspace communication channel itself. On the Romulan flagship's bridge, officers shouted in alarm as their displays went black, replaced by a singular image. Jin-Woo's face, eyes blazing with silver light, surrounded by an endless army that stretched into infinity. "You wanted to see what I am?" Jin-Woo's voice resonated through every speaker on all 3 Romulan vessels simultaneously. "I am the Shadow Monarch. I command 10 million soldiers who cannot die because they're already dead. I've killed gods, destroyed armies, and sealed dimensional breaches that threatened reality itself. Your 3 ships? I could dismantle them in under 30 seconds without leaving this bridge. On Tomalak's ship, tactical officers were frantically trying to regain control of their systems. Weapons wouldn't respond. Shields flickered. Even the cloaking device was offline, hijacked by shadow energy flowing through their computer cores. "This is impossible," Tomalak snarled. "Our systems are isolated, encrypted with quantum algorithms." "Your technology is impressive," Jin-Woo interrupted calmly. "But it operates in 3 dimensions. I operate in 17. Your firewalls mean nothing when I can simply step around them through subspace." The system interface glowed before Jin-Woo's eyes, displaying the complete schematics of all 3 Romulan warbirds. Security codes, weapon systems, crew complement, even Tomalak's personal logs. And the Federation's most advanced intelligence services would have killed for this information. Jin-Woo had acquired it in 4.2 seconds. Romulan computer systems compromised. Control authority transferred to Shadow Monarch. Available actions: disable weapons, eject warp core, activate self-destruct, vent atmosphere, or... Jin-Woo ignored the destructive options. He wasn't here to kill Romulans. He was here to ensure they never threatened him again. "Here's what's going to happen," Jin-Woo said, his voice carrying absolute authority. "You're going to withdraw. You're going to report to your Tal Shiar masters that I'm not a weapon to be acquired. I'm not a threat to be eliminated. I'm someone who should be left alone. And if anyone, Romulan, Federation, Klingon, or otherwise, decides to test me again..." He gestured, and then on the Romulan view screens, a tactical display appeared showing their own ships. Then shadow soldiers began manifesting around them, not attacking, just appearing. Thousands of them, surrounding each warbird in a sphere of deadly potential. "I'll demonstrate that destroying 27 Borg cubes was me being gentle." The shadow soldiers vanished as quickly as they'd appeared, but the message was delivered. Tomalak stared at the view screen, his expression carefully neutral. But Troy could feel the emotions roiling beneath: fear, fury, and grudging respect. The Romulan commander was a pragmatist above all else. He recognized when he was outmatched. "You have made your point," Tomalak said stiffly. "The Romulan Star Empire has no quarrel with you at this time. But know this: power attracts conflict, and you may desire to be left alone, but your very existence destabilizes the balance of the quadrant. Others will come, others who are less reasonable." "Let them come," Jin-Woo replied. "The result will be the same." Tomalak's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps. But consider this anomaly. You are one being. Powerful, yes, but one. The Romulan Empire spans hundreds of systems. The Federation, thousands. The Borg Collective, even more. You cannot be everywhere. You cannot protect everyone. Sooner or later, your limitations will be exploited." Jin-Woo's expression didn't change, but internally, he acknowledged the truth in Tomalak's words. It was the same problem he'd faced in his own world. He could defeat any individual threat, but he couldn't be in multiple places simultaneously. Well, he could deploy his shadow army across vast distances, but even that had limits. "I'll worry about my limitations," Jin-Woo said. "You worry about yours. Like the fact that I now have complete access to your ship's computer core and every piece of intelligence it contains." Tomalak's face went pale. "You wouldn't dare. I already did. Your weapons development programs, spy network locations, tactical assessments of Federation defenses, it's all sitting in my system's storage right now. I could share it with Captain Picard, or I could keep it as insurance that you won't bother me again." The Romulan commander's jaw clenched. "Blackmail. Deterrence," Jin-Woo corrected. "I don't want your secrets. I don't care about your politics or your conflicts with the Federation. But if you make me an enemy, I become the kind of enemy who knows exactly where to strike. Do we understand each other?" A long, tense silence stretched across subspace. Then Tomalak gave a curt nod. Understood. The Romulan Star Empire will observe your activities with interest, but will not interfere. For now. He leaned forward slightly. But answer me one question, Shadow Monarch. Why do you protect the Federation? They are not your people. This is not your universe. Why fight their battles? Jin-Woo considered the question seriously. Because innocent people shouldn't suffer just because I happen to land in their universe. The dimensional breach would have killed billions if left unchecked. The Borg would have assimilated entire civilizations. I have the power to prevent that, so I do. It's not more complicated than that. Tomalak studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Perhaps you are precisely what you claim to be. Not a weapon, not a conqueror. Simply a protector. His expression shifted to something almost resembling respect. The galaxy has not seen your like in some time. I wonder if it will survive the experience. Only one way to find out, Jin-Woo replied. Tomalak's image flickered. Commander Tomalak to Romulan fleet, disengage. Set course for the neutral zone, maximum warp. He looked back at Jin-Woo one final time. We will meet again, Shadow Monarch. Under what circumstances, I cannot say. But the Romulan Star Empire does not forget those who demonstrate such capability. The view screen went dark. Moments later, the three warbirds cloaked and vanished from sensors, leaving the Enterprise alone in space once more. Picard let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That was effective. Aggressive, but effective. They were going to attack. Jin-Woo said simply, shadows receding back into his normal form. Better to establish dominance immediately than fight a running battle across the sector. Worf barked a laugh from Tactical. Spoken like a true warrior, the Romulans respect strength. You gave them a demonstration they will not forget. He paused. Though I must ask, do you truly have access to their computer systems? Jin-Woo pulled up the system interface and displayed a classified Romulan file on the main view screen. Tactical assessments of Klingon border defenses, complete with detailed star charts and fleet positions. Yes, Jin-Woo said simply. Every byte. Should I delete it, Captain? Or would Starfleet intelligence like a copy? Picard's expression was conflicted, be it that information was obtained through unconventional means. Using it would violate several Federation principles regarding intelligence gathering. But keeping it as insurance against future Romulan aggression is pragmatic, Riker added from the first officer's station. Captain, we're in uncharted territory here, literally and figuratively. Data interjected thoughtfully. The ethical implications are complex. However, I would note that Jin-Woo obtained the information in self-defense against an imminent threat. The Romulans intended to capture or destroy him. His response, while aggressive, was proportionate to the danger presented. Jin-Woo closed the interface. I'll keep it locked in my system. If the Romulans honor their word and leave us alone, they'll never know what I took. If they don't. He shrugged. If then we'll have leverage. A dangerous game, Picard observed. But perhaps the only one we can play, given the circumstances. He straightened. In any case, this incident will definitely be included in my report to Starfleet Command. They need to know that your presence has already attracted attention from multiple major powers. And that I can handle it, Jin-Woo added. I'm not a liability that needs protecting. I'm an asset who can protect myself. Noted, Picard said. Though I suspect Starfleet Command will have opinions about your methods. The comm system chirped. Engineering to bridge. Captain, We've completed repairs from the dimensional soldier incursion. But sir, we've got something strange down here. Some of Jin-Woo's shadow soldiers, the ones that merged with our systems, they left residue. LaForge's voice carried equal parts fascination and concern. Picard glanced at Jin-Woo. Residue? Jin-Woo frowned. Igris, Iron, report. The two Shadow Knights materialized on the bridge, their forms solid and imposing. My king, Igris said, when we interfaced with the Federation vessel's power systems, we encountered technology unlike any in your original world. The warp core, the dilithium matrix, the antimatter containment. All of it operates on principles we absorbed and integrated. We may have left fragments of shadow essence in the ship's conduits, Iron added, his massive armored form somehow managing to look sheepish. It was unintentional. The merging process was intimate. Data's eyes widened. Captain, if shadow essence has integrated with our systems, the implications are staggering. We may have inadvertently created a hybrid technology, Federation engineering enhanced with dimensional manipulation capabilities. Is it dangerous? Picard asked immediately. Unknown, Data admitted. But I recommend we investigate thoroughly before attempting warp drive again. Jin-Woo closed his eyes, extending his senses through the ship. He could feel it now, threads of shadow woven through the Enterprise's power grid, subtle but present. Not corrupting the systems, but augmenting them. The warp core was resonating with dimensional frequencies it shouldn't be able to access. It's not dangerous, Jin-Woo said slowly, opening his eyes. But it has changed your ship. The shadow essence is acting like a catalyst, making your existing systems more efficient. Your warp drive is probably capable of higher sustained speeds now. Your shields might have better resistance to exotic energy attacks. LaForge's voice crackled with barely contained excitement. Captain, I'm reading a 12% increase in warp field coherence and a 17% improvement in antimatter conversion efficiency. The ship is faster and more powerful than it was an hour ago. Picard looked at Jin-Woo with a mixture of gratitude and concern. You've enhanced the Enterprise. Accidentally, Jin-Woo clarified. Igris and Iron didn't mean to leave permanent changes, but yes, your ship is now hybrid technology. Part Federation engineering, part shadow essence. It's unique in this universe. And it will attract even more attention, Riker predicted grimly. Every intelligence service, every military organization, and every research institution, they'll all want to study a starship enhanced with dimensional technology. Then we don't tell anyone, Picard decided immediately. The enhancement remains classified at the highest level. Only senior staff will be informed. Agreed. The bridge crew nodded in unison. Jin-Woo appreciated the decisiveness. Thank you. I'd rather not have scientists trying to vivisect my shadows to replicate the effect. Troy spoke up, her empathic senses picking up something from Jin-Woo. You're worried. Not about the Romulans or Starfleet Command, about something else. Jin-Woo nodded slowly. Tomalak was right about one thing. I can't be everywhere. If more dimensional breaches open, if more architects appear in different parts of the galaxy, I can deploy my shadow army. But I'm still just one person, and I can't coordinate defense across hundreds of light years simultaneously. You need a network, Data suggested. A distributed sensor grid that can detect dimensional anomalies before they become critical. Combined with your shadow army's ability to deploy instantly through subspace, you could respond to threats anywhere in Federation space within minutes. That would require massive infrastructure, Picard said. Sensor stations across dozens of systems, all linked through a central hub. The resources alone are available, a new voice interrupted. Everyone turned to see Q materialize on the bridge in a flash of white light. The omnipotent entity stood there in a Starfleet admiral's uniform, looking thoroughly pleased with himself. "Oh no," Picard groaned. "Oh yes," Q proclaimed cheerfully. Did you really think I'd miss the most interesting thing to happen to this boring quadrant in millennia? A Shadow Monarch from another universe." "Delightful." Jin-Woo's hand moved instinctively toward his daggers, shadows pooling at his feet. The system blazed with warnings. Alert, entity detected. Power level, immeasurable. Threat assessment, unknown. Entity exists outside normal dimensional framework. Recommendation, extreme caution. "Who are you?" Jin-Woo demanded. Q flourished dramatically. "I am Q, omnipotent, omniscient, and utterly fabulous. And you, my dear Shadow Monarch, are the most interesting toy to fall into this universe since Jean-Luc here started his little journey of enlightenment." He snapped his fingers, and suddenly he was wearing a black cloak identical to Jin-Woo's. "See? I can do shadows too, though mine are more fashionable." "Q," Picard said warningly, "if you're here to cause trouble." "Trouble? Why?" Q pressed a hand to his chest in mock offense. "I'm here to help. After all, this young man just destroyed an architect. Do you have any idea how monumentally significant that is?" He circled Jin-Woo, studying him like a fascinating specimen. The architects exist outside the normal flow of reality. They're cosmic engineers, reality manipulators, experimenters extraordinaire. And you, he poked Jin-Woo in the chest. You killed one. That takes a very special kind of power. Jin-Woo swatted Q's hand away. "What do you want?" "To offer a deal." Q snapped his fingers, and the bridge was suddenly transported to a vast cosmic vista. Stars wheeling overhead, galaxies visible in the distance. Only the Enterprise crew and Jin-Woo remained, standing on what appeared to be solid light. "You need a sensor network to detect dimensional breaches. I can provide it, instantly, across the entire galaxy if you like." "In exchange for what?" Jin-Woo asked suspiciously. Q's smile was that of a cat who'd found the canary. "Entertainment. I want to watch you work. Study how your power interacts with this universe. See what happens when a being from one reality learns to master another." He leaned close, his omnipotent eyes gleaming. "You fascinate me, Shadow Monarch. You're not bound by this universe's rules, yet you're not entirely foreign either. You're evolving, adapting, becoming something new." "You want to use me as an experiment," Jin-Woo said flatly. "No more than the architects used you," Q countered. "But unlike them, I'm offering a fair trade. I give you the tools to protect this galaxy from dimensional threats. You let me observe occasionally. No interference in your battles unless you're about to do something catastrophically stupid. No tests of humanity, just observation." Picard stepped forward. "Q, your idea of observation has nearly destroyed the Enterprise multiple times." "That was different," Q protested. "That was testing you, Jean-Luc, to see if humanity deserved to evolve. This is purely academic interest in an interdimensional anomaly." He turned back to Jin-Woo. "What do you say, Shadow Monarch? A galaxy-spanning sensor network in exchange for letting an ancient cosmic being watch you be awesome?" Jin-Woo looked at Picard, who gave a minute shake of his head. Clear warning against trusting Q. But Jin-Woo was thinking strategically. But if Q was truly omnipotent, he could observe Jin-Woo whether a deal was made or not. At least this way, there were stated terms, and the sensor network would be invaluable. "One condition," Jin-Woo said. "You don't interfere with my battles, ever, even if I'm losing." even if I'm about to die. You watch, you don't act. Q's eyebrows rose. You'd rather die than accept help from me? I'd rather die on my own terms than become someone's puppet, Jin-Woo replied. If you can't agree to that, then we have no deal. Q studied him for a long moment, then smiled, this time with genuine respect. You really are interesting. Very well. I accept your terms. Sensor network for observation rights. No interference. Do we have an accord? Jin-Woo extended his hand. We do. Q shook it, and reality bent. In that instant, Jin-Woo felt information flooding into his system. Coordinates for thousands of sensor stations scattered across the galaxy, all networked together, all feeding data about dimensional stability in real time. Dimensional sensor network. Acquired. Coverage, 87% of Federation space. Breach detection capability, active. Warning, sponsor entity. Q has observation access. Q released Jin-Woo's hand and snapped his fingers. The bridge returned to normal, the cosmic vista vanishing. There, all done. You now have the most advanced dimensional monitoring system in the galaxy. Use it wisely, or don't. Either way will be entertaining. Q started to vanish, then paused. Oh, and Shadow Monarch? The architects you destroyed? They're going to be very upset when they realize one of their experiments killed one of them. Sleep tight. He vanished in a flash of light. Silence fell over the bridge. Did we just make a deal with Q? Riker asked in disbelief. Apparently, Picard said wearily, though I suspect we'll regret it. Jin-Woo was already studying the sensor network data flooding his system. Maybe. But he was right about one thing. This network is incredible. I can detect dimensional anomalies across the entire Federation now. If another breach opens, I'll know about it instantly. At the cost of being Q's personal entertainment, Picard noted. Better than being anyone's weapon, Jin-Woo replied. He looked at the captain seriously. I appreciate the concern, but I've dealt with godlike entities before. Q is powerful, but he's also bound by his own rules, as long as I don't give him leverage. He's just an observer. I hope you're right, Picard said. Because in my experience, Q's involvement always leads to complications. The comm system chirped again. Bridge, this is Starfleet Command. We've received Captain Picard's preliminary report. We're ordering the Enterprise to return to Earth immediately for full debriefing. All senior officers and the dimensional anomaly known as Sung Jin-Woo are to report to Starfleet headquarters within 48 hours. Picard and Jin-Woo locked eyes. Looks like we're about to meet your superiors, Jin-Woo said. Indeed, Picard replied. And I suspect it will be interesting. Starfleet headquarters, San Francisco, Earth. The gleaming complex of buildings overlooked the bay, a monument to humanity's idealistic vision of exploration and cooperation. To Jin-Woo, who materialized via shadow transit onto the transporter pad rather than use the actual transporter, it looked like every other government facility he'd encountered. Impressive architecture hiding bureaucratic paranoia. The transporter chief stared at him in shock. Sir, you weren't in the matter stream. How did you shadow travel? Jin-Woo said simply, stepping off the pad. Where's the briefing room? Captain Picard, who had transported conventionally along with Riker and Data, gave the transporter chief a reassuring nod. It's quite all right, Chief. Mr. Sung has unconventional methods. The transporter chief looked like he wanted to file 17 reports, but settled for a bewildered Level 15, Conference Room Alpha, sir. The walk through Starfleet headquarters was enlightening. Officers in various colored uniforms bustled through corridors, many stopping to stare at Jin-Woo. Word had clearly spread. The man who destroyed 27 Borg cubes. The dimensional anomaly. The Shadow Monarch. Jin-Woo ignored the stares with practiced ease. He'd dealt with celebrity status in his world after becoming the strongest hunter. This was just a different flavor of the same phenomenon. "You're handling the attention well," Riker observed as they entered a turbo lift. "I'm used to it," Jin-Woo replied. "After I defeated the monarchs in my world, every government, organization, and corporation wanted a piece of me. Some wanted to recruit me, some wanted to control me, some wanted to study me, and a few wanted to kill me before I became too powerful." "How did you handle it?" Picard asked. Jin-Woo's smile was cold. "I made it very clear that anyone who tried to manipulate me would regret it. Publicly, permanently. After a few examples, people learned to leave me alone." "That approach may not work here," Data noted. "The Federation operates on principles of diplomacy and consensus. Violent demonstrations tend to complicate negotiations." "Then they'd better not push me to violence," Jin-Woo said. "I came here in good faith. I've helped your people, saved billions of lives, sealed a dimensional breach. If Starfleet Command tries to treat me like a weapon to be acquired or a threat to be contained, I'll leave, and immediately, and they won't be able to stop me." The turbo lift doors opened onto level 15. A young lieutenant was waiting, looking nervous. "Captain Picard, Mr. Sung, the Admiralty is ready for you. If you'll follow me." Conference Room Alpha was designed to intimidate. A massive oval table dominated the space, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of San Francisco. But Jin-Woo's attention was on the 9 individuals seated at the table. Admiral Alina Nechayev sat at the head, a stern woman with sharp eyes and sharper political instincts. Beside her were 8 other flag officers representing various branches of Starfleet: tactical, scientific, intelligence, diplomatic, and more. And standing against the far wall, trying to appear inconspicuous, were 3 individuals in civilian clothes who practically radiated intelligence operative. Section 31. Jin-Woo's system helpfully identified, analyzing their body language and subtle augmentations. The Federation's Black Ops Division. Of course they'd be here. "Captain Picard," Admiral Nechayev said, her voice crisp and professional. "Please be seated. Mr. Sung..." Her eyes fixed on Jin-Woo with unnerving intensity. "Welcome to Earth. I'm Admiral Nechayev, Chief of Starfleet Operations. We have many questions." Jin-Woo remained standing. "I'll answer what I can. But let's establish something first. I'm here as a courtesy. I'm not under your jurisdiction, not subject to your authority, and not interested in being recruited into Starfleet. I work with Captain Picard because I respect him. Don't test whether that cooperation extends to you." Several admirals stiffened at the blunt statement. One, a Vulcan with commander's pips, raised an eyebrow. "Fascinating. You possess extraordinary power, yet display territorial defensiveness. Psychologically, this suggests past trauma related to authority figures." "Admiral Tavik is correct," another officer added, this one an Andorian. "Your hostility seems disproportionate to the current situation. We merely wish to understand." "You wish to understand how to replicate my power," Jin-Woo interrupted. "How to control it. How to weaponize it. I've seen this script before, Admiral. It always ends the same way, with me having to remind people why I'm not to be trifled with." Nechayev raised a hand, silencing the other officers. "Mr. Sung, you're not wrong to be suspicious. Your abilities represent a paradigm shift in galactic power dynamics. Every intelligence service from here to the Gamma Quadrant will want to study you, recruit you, or neutralize you. That's simply reality. She leaned forward. But consider this. Starfleet isn't your enemy. We're scientists and explorers first, military second. We don't want to weaponize you. We want to understand you so we can better protect the Federation from threats like the dimensional breach you sealed. And if I refuse to be studied? Jin-Woo asked. Then you refuse, Nechayev said simply. We're not in the habit of forcing cooperation. The Federation was built on voluntary participation, not coercion. Jin-Woo studied her carefully. The system was analyzing micro-expressions, vocal patterns, physiological responses. She believed what she was saying, or at least, she believed it. But there were others in the room whose tells suggested different agendas. I'll work with your scientists on a limited basis, Jin-Woo said slowly. Non-invasive scans only. No attempts to extract samples, replicate my abilities, or probe the system. In exchange, I get full access to your dimensional research, advanced physics databases, and any intelligence related to extra-dimensional threats. The Vulcan Admiral, Tevik, tilted his head. That is an equitable exchange. However, some of the information you request is classified at levels requiring Starfleet commission. Then give me a commission, Jin-Woo said. Honorary rank. No actual command responsibilities. No obligation to follow orders, just the clearance to access what I need. Unprecedented, the Andorian muttered. So is everything about me, Jin-Woo replied. Get used to it. Admiral Nechayev glanced at her fellow officers, some silent communication passing between them. Finally, she nodded. Very well. We'll grant you the provisional rank of commander, attached to Captain Picard's command as an independent specialist. You'll have clearance equivalent to senior staff, but no formal command authority. This is conditional on your continued cooperation. Acceptable, Jin-Woo agreed. One of the Section 31 operatives stepped forward, a human male, middle-aged, with eyes that had seen too much. A question, Mr. Sung. You claim to have destroyed an architect. These entities exist outside normal reality, beyond conventional physical laws. How did you kill something that transcends mortality? Jin-Woo turned his full attention to the operative. Who are you? Director Sloan. I represent specialized Federation interests. Section 31, Jin-Woo said flatly. Black Ops? The people who do what Starfleet officially doesn't approve of. Sloan didn't deny it. We protect the Federation from threats it doesn't want to acknowledge. Like you. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Picard stood immediately. Director Sloan, if you're implying... I'm stating facts. Sloan interrupted, his eyes never leaving Jin-Woo. This individual possesses the power to devastate entire star systems. He's demonstrated the ability to hijack advanced computer systems, bypass every known defensive technology, and deploy an army that defeated the Borg. He could conquer the Federation if he chose. That makes him a threat regardless of his intentions. Jin-Woo smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Look, you're right. I could conquer the Federation. Easily. I could deploy my shadow army across every major world simultaneously, seize control of your infrastructure, and establish absolute dominion within a week. He paused, letting that sink in. But I won't. Because conquest doesn't interest me. Protection does. If you can't tell the difference, that's your failure, not mine. Words are cheap, Sloan countered. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. History has proven this across every known civilization. Then let me tell you about my history, Jin-Woo said coldly. I was a nobody, weakest hunter in my world, barely survived low-level dungeons. Then I died fighting to protect people who despised hunters. When I came back, I had power. And what did I do with it? I fought harder, saved more people, defeated threats that would have destroyed my entire world. I had opportunities to seize control, to declare myself Emperor of Earth. I didn't, because that's not who I am. He stepped closer to Sloan, shadows pooling at his feet. You want to know if I'm a threat? I'm the biggest threat this galaxy has ever seen, but only to things that threaten innocent people, monsters, tyrants, dimensional horrors. If Section 31 falls into that category, then yes, you should be very afraid of me. Sloan held his ground, but Jin-Woo could see the tactical assessment happening behind his eyes, calculating odds, evaluating threats, coming to the inevitable conclusion that conventional methods wouldn't work. Director Sloan, Admiral Nechayev said sharply, stand down. Mr. Sung is here under diplomatic protocols. Whatever concerns Section 31 has can be addressed through proper channels. Proper channels, Sloan repeated, his tone suggesting what he thought of that idea. But he stepped back. Very well, Admiral. But understand this, Mr. Sung. We'll be watching. If you become a threat to Federation security, we will respond, proportionately. Looking forward to it, Jin-Woo replied with a dangerous smile. Data, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. If I may interject, this confrontational approach is counterproductive. Jin-Woo has demonstrated consistent protective behavior. Statistical analysis of his actions shows zero correlation with conquest or malevolent intent. His threat to Director Sloan was conditional, dependent on Section 31 initiating hostile action first. This is defensive posturing, not aggressive intent. The android makes a valid point, Admiral Tavik agreed. Vulcan psychological profiles suggest that Mr. Sung operates under a strict moral code centered on protection of innocence. His power is restrained by principle, not weakness. This makes him a potential ally, not a threat. Unless those principles change, Sloan muttered. Principles don't change overnight, Picard interjected firmly. I've worked alongside Mr. Sung. I've seen him risk his life to protect people he just met. He sealed a dimensional breach that would have destroyed billions of lives. He could have left, returned to searching for a way home. Instead, he stayed and fought. That speaks to his character. Admiral Nechayev studied Jin-Woo for a long moment. Captain Picard's endorsement carries significant weight. Very well. Mr. Sung, you have your provisional commission. We'll arrange for scientific consultations on a voluntary basis. In return, we expect your cooperation if future dimensional threats emerge. As long as we're working together, not you giving me orders, Jin-Woo clarified. Understood. Nechayev stood, and the other admirals followed suit. Welcome to Starfleet, Commander Sung. Dismissed. As the meeting broke up, Sloan approached Jin-Woo one final time. A word of advice, Commander. Power without accountability is dictatorship. At some point, the Federation will need assurances that you won't abuse your abilities. And I'll need assurances that Section 31 won't try to assassinate me or weaponize my power. Jin-Woo countered. Seems like we're at an impasse. For now, Sloan agreed. He glanced at the three Section 31 operatives still standing against the wall. A subtle hand signal passed between them. But understand, we've dealt with godlike beings before. Q, the Dowd, the Organians. They all had weaknesses. So do you. Feel free to try to find them, Jin-Woo said. Just know that if Section 31 moves against me, I won't just defend myself. I'll dismantle your entire organization, publicly. I'll expose every black op, every illegal operation, every specialized interest you represent. Your secrets will be broadcast across every Federation channel. Are we clear? Sloane's expression didn't change, but his eyes hardened. Crystal clear, Commander. He left, his operatives following like shadows. Riker exhaled slowly. Well, that could have gone worse. Could it have? Picard asked wearily. Like we've just created a permanent conflict between Jin-Woo and one of the Federation's most dangerous covert organizations. They started it, Jin-Woo said, watching Sloane disappear down the corridor. I just made sure they knew the consequences of escalation. Data tilted his head. An interesting application of mutually assured destruction doctrine. By threatening to expose Section 31, you've created a deterrent against their interference. However, this also ensures they will view you as a permanent threat requiring surveillance. Let them watch, Jin-Woo said. They won't find anything useful. And if they try something stupid, I'll know about it before they do. The system chimed softly. Alert, surveillance detected. Multiple covert sensor arrays tracking your position. Analysis, Section 31 monitoring systems. Countermeasure options available. Jin-Woo smiled. See? Already watching. Predictable. Picard placed a hand on Jin-Woo's shoulder. You've made powerful enemies today. Section 31 doesn't forgive or forget. Neither do I, Jin-Woo replied. But I appreciate the concern, Captain. Truly. What will you do now? Riker asked. With your provisional commission and access to Federation resources? Jin-Woo pulled up the dimensional sensor network Q had provided. Already, it was showing minor fluctuations across multiple sectors. Nothing critical yet, but signs of instability. The architect's death had clearly sent ripples through the multiverse. I'm going to hunt, Jin-Woo said quietly. The architect I killed was maintaining that breach deliberately, which means there are more of them out there, running more experiments, threatening more universes. I need to find them before they create another crisis. A noble goal, Admiral Tavik said, approaching from behind. The Vulcan had remained in the conference room after the others left. However, you will require assistance. The galaxy is vast, and even with your abilities, you cannot patrol every sector simultaneously. I have my Shadow Army, Jin-Woo pointed out, which are powerful but lack the scientific expertise to analyze dimensional phenomena, Tavik countered. I propose a collaborative effort. Starfleet Science Division can provide analysis and predictive modeling of dimensional instabilities, but you provide the force necessary to address threats when they emerge. A symbiotic relationship. Jin-Woo considered this. You're offering resources without trying to control me? Vulcans value logic over control, Tavik replied. Attempting to control you would be illogical and counterproductive. Cooperation yields superior results to coercion. I like you, Jin-Woo said. You don't play games. I am incapable of playing games, Tavik said seriously, not recognizing the compliment. My proposal stands. Will you accept? Jin-Woo extended his hand. Let's save some universes together, Admiral. Tavik shook it with perfect Vulcan composure. Acceptable. As they exited Starfleet headquarters, Jin-Woo felt the weight of multiple futures pressing down. The architects were still out there. Section 31 was now actively hostile, and the Federation expected results. And somewhere, across dimensions, his original Earth still existed, potentially under threat from the same forces that had brought him here. But he also had new allies, new resources, and most importantly, a clearer understanding of this universe's rules and how to exploit them. The system chimed with a new notification. Quest update. Find the way home. New lead acquired. Federation Dimensional Research Archive. Probability of successful return. 23% and rising. Estimated time to completion, 6 to 8 months. 6 to 8 months. Not an eternity, but not immediate either. Enough time to help these people, to address the architect threat, to make a difference in this universe before returning to his own. Commander Sung, Picard said as they walked through the headquarters plaza, "What are you thinking?" Jin-Woo looked up at the sky, where stars were beginning to emerge in the darkening twilight. "I'm thinking that I came to this universe by accident. But maybe I can do some good before I leave. Make sure that when I go home, this galaxy is safer than when I arrived." "A worthy goal," Picard agreed, "and one I believe you can achieve." Riker grinned. "Besides, it's not every day we get to work with someone who can punch gods and seal dimensional rifts before breakfast. This partnership might actually be fun." "Fun," Jin-Woo repeated, a small smile crossing his face. "Sure, let's go with that." Somewhere in the shadows of Starfleet headquarters, Director Sloan watched the group through surveillance feeds, his expression unreadable. Beside him, one of his operatives spoke quietly. "Orders, sir? Do we move against the target?" Sloan was silent for a long moment. Then, "No, not yet. We watch, we learn, we find his weaknesses." He zoomed the feed in on Jin-Woo's face. "Everyone has weaknesses, even gods. And when we find his, we strike," the operative finished. "We protect the Federation," Sloan corrected, "by any means necessary." The surveillance feed continued recording as Jin-Woo, Picard, Riker, and Data disappeared into the San Francisco evening, unaware that the galaxy's most dangerous game had just begun. 3 weeks later, the dimensional sensor network Q had provided began screaming alerts. Jin-Woo was in the Enterprise's astrometrics lab, working with Admiral Tavok's science team to analyze subspace fluctuation patterns, when the system interface erupted with urgent warnings. Critical alert, major dimensional breach detected. Location, Beta Quadrant, Sector 973. Breach classification, Omega class threat. Energy signature. Match, architect variant, 97.3% probability. Estimated time to critical mass, 4 hours, 12 minutes. Civilian population at risk, 2.7 billion, Vulcan colony world to cut. Jin-Woo's blood went cold. "Captain, we have a problem." Picard was on the bridge within seconds of Jin-Woo's alert. The view screen now displayed the sensor data. A massive rift tearing through space near Takut, Vulcan's sister planet. And unlike the previous breach, this one was already fully formed, and things were coming through. "Magnify," Picard ordered. The image zoomed in, revealing a nightmare. Dimensional warriors, thousands of them, were pouring through the breach like an invading army. But these weren't the crystalline soldiers from before. These were different, biomechanical monstrosities that seemed to phase between solid and incorporeal states, each one radiating power signatures that made the Enterprise's sensors scream warnings. And behind them, coordinating the invasion, was an architect. Larger than the one Jin-Woo had killed, more refined, more powerful. Its form was stabilized, adapted specifically for sustained operation in normal space. "Fascinating!" The architect's voice boomed across subspace frequencies, audible throughout the sector, where the Shadow Monarch actually managed to kill Experiment Coordinator 7. Alpha, impressive. But 7 Alpha was young, inexperienced. I am Prime Architect 2 Omega. I have overseen 10,000 dimensional experiments, and I will not fall so easily. Data's fingers flew across his console. Captain, the dimensional warriors are attacking Takut's orbital defense platforms. The Vulcan fleet is responding, but their weapons are having minimal effect. The enemy forces are adapting to each attack after a single exposure, similar to Borg technology, but faster. How long until the colony is overrun? Picard demanded. At current invasion rates, the orbital defenses will fall within 40 minutes. After that, the surface cities will be defenseless. Maximum warp to Takut. All hands to battle stations. Send a priority distress signal to Starfleet Command. We need every available ship in this sector. Picard turned to Jin-Woo. Can you deploy your army fast enough to make a difference? Jin-Woo was already channeling shadow essence through subspace. I'm already there. On Takut, in the capital city of Shikar Minor, 3 million Vulcans maintained their legendary composure even as dimensional horrors descended from the sky. Evacuation protocols were being executed with perfect efficiency. Civilians moving to underground shelters while Vulcan security forces established defensive perimeters. Then shadow erupted across the battlefield. 100,000 shadow soldiers materialized simultaneously. Knights, archers, mages, tanks, all appearing in perfect formation between the dimensional warriors and the city. At their head stood Beru, his massive Ant King form towering over the battlefield, mandibles clicking with anticipation. My king commands, hold this line. Beru's telepathic roar echoed across every mind within a kilometer. No enemy passes, no innocent falls. The Shadow Army surged forward to meet the dimensional warriors. What followed was a clash that violated every known law of physics. Igris led the vanguard, his black blade carving through enemies that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Each strike didn't just kill. It severed the warriors' connection to other realities, forcing them into single-state existence where they became mortal. Iron planted his massive shield and became an immovable object. Dimensional warriors crashed against it like waves against a cliff, and their exotic weapons unable to penetrate shadow-forged adamantine. Shadow mages unleashed barrages of dimensional energy, countering the invaders' reality-warping attacks with Jin-Woo's own mastery of subspace manipulation. But the dimensional warriors were learning, adapting. After the first few thousand casualties, they began phasing through shadow soldiers' attacks, existing in states where conventional violence couldn't touch them. Jin-Woo, still aboard the Enterprise but maintaining perfect awareness through his army, recognized the problem immediately. These enemies had been designed specifically to counter his tactics. The Prime Architect had learned from 7 Alpha's death. They're adapting faster than the Borg, Jin-Woo muttered. I need to change tactics. He reached into the depths of his power, accessing abilities he'd rarely used since inheriting the Shadow Monarch's full authority. Domain expansion. Reality itself twisted. A sphere of pure shadow essence erupted from Jin-Woo's army, expanding outward to encompass the entire battlefield, a space where Jin-Woo was absolute sovereign. Inside his domain, the normal rules didn't apply. Only his rules mattered. The dimensional warriors suddenly found themselves unable to phase, unable to adapt, unable to exist in multiple states. They were forced into singular existence, bound by the Shadow Monarch's authority. And in singular existence, they could be killed, permanently. The Shadow Army redoubled their assault, and now every strike landed. Every arrow found its mark, every spell detonated with devastating effect. The dimensional warriors fell by the hundreds, then thousands, and their exotic abilities nullified within Jin-Woo's domain. Aboard the Enterprise, Picard watched in awe as the tactical display showed the invasion force being systematically annihilated. Remarkable. He's created a zone where his power supersedes their adaptive capabilities. Not merely a zone, Data corrected, his sensors analyzing the phenomenon. He has temporarily rewritten the fundamental laws of physics within a localized area. Inside that sphere, reality operates according to his will. The dimensional warriors cannot adapt because adaptation requires accessing alternate dimensional states, which no longer exist within his domain. Worf grinned savagely. Now that is a warrior's power. But on Takut's surface, Jin-Woo's consciousness, split between his physical form on the Enterprise and his army below, detected a problem. The domain expansion was consuming massive amounts of energy. He could maintain it for perhaps another 10 minutes before exhaustion forced him to drop it. And the Prime Architect was still out there, observing, learning. Impressive display, Shadow Monarch. The Architect's voice resonated. Domain expansion, a technique that asserts your will over reality itself, but it has a fatal flaw. The Architect raised one hand, and the dimensional breach pulsed with power. Suddenly, a second wave of warriors began emerging. But these were different. They weren't trying to enter Jin-Woo's domain. Instead, they spread out around it, attacking the Vulcan cities that weren't protected by the Shadow Sphere. Jin-Woo saw the trap immediately. He could maintain the domain and protect the central city, but that left the outlying settlements defenseless, or he could drop the domain to deploy his army more widely, which would allow the first wave of dimensional warriors to regain their adaptive abilities. Clever bastard, Jin-Woo growled. Picard saw it too. He's forcing you to choose maximum effectiveness in one location or distributed defense across multiple targets. There's a third option, Jin-Woo said. His eyes began to glow with silver light. I go after the Architect directly. Cut off the head, the body dies. The dimensional warriors won't simply vanish if you kill their commander. Data warned. Unlike your shadow soldiers, they appear to be semi-autonomous constructs. Then I'll extract them after I kill their master, Jin-Woo replied. Every enemy I defeat becomes mine. That's the fundamental rule of the Shadow Monarch. He stood, shadows swirling around his form. Captain, I'm going to need the Enterprise to provide covering fire. The Architect is maintaining the breach from a fixed position in high orbit. I'll shadow transit directly to it, but I need you to hit it with everything you've got the moment I engage. You're going to fight that thing alone? Riker asked incredulously. Not alone, Jin-Woo corrected. Beru, Igris, Iron, convergence formation. On Takut, the three greatest shadows disengaged from the battle and dissolved into pure essence. That essence shot through subspace, crossing the distance between planet and orbit in microseconds, and reformed beside Jin-Woo on the Enterprise bridge. The sudden appearance of three massive warrior entities caused several consoles to overload from the sheer proximity to such concentrated power. My king calls, and we answer, Igris intoned, so his blade already drawn. The Prime Architect will fall like all others, Beru added confidently. We stand with you, Iron rumbled, shield ready. Jin-Woo looked at Picard. Ready? Picard gave orders with calm authority. All weapons, prepare to fire on my mark. Tactical, lock onto the entity's energy signature. Helm, adjust position to give us optimal firing angle. He turned to Jin-Woo. We'll hit it with quantum torpedoes and maximum yield photon spreads. That should disrupt its defenses long enough for you to strike. Good enough. Jin-Woo placed one hand on each of his shadows. Let's finish this. They dissolved into darkness and vanished. In high orbit above Takut, The Prime Architect 2 Omega maintained its position at the dimensional breach's focal point. It was analyzing combat data from the surface battle and refining its dimensional warriors' programming, adjusting tactical algorithms. The Shadow Monarch was formidable, but ultimately predictable. All combat entities followed patterns. All patterns could be exploited. Then Jin-Woo materialized directly in front of it, daggers drawn, 3 legendary shadows flanking him. Predictable, the architect said. I calculated 89.7% probability you would attempt direct assassination. Countermeasures prepared. Space around the architect twisted, and suddenly Jin-Woo found himself surrounded by a cage of frozen time. Dimensional barriers that existed in temporal stasis, impossible to penetrate with conventional shadow techniques. But Jin-Woo wasn't using conventional techniques. You're right, I am predictable, he said calmly. Which is why I didn't come alone. The Enterprise opened fire. Quantum torpedoes streaked across space, each one calibrated to detonate at different dimensional frequencies. The architect's temporal cage shattered under the onslaught, unable to maintain coherence against weapons that struck across multiple states of reality simultaneously. The Prime Architect staggered, its defenses compromised. Jin-Woo didn't hesitate. He surged forward, Demon King's daggers blazing with shadow essence. Igris attacked from the left, his great sword carving through the architect's weakened shields. Beru struck from above, mandibles seeking to crush the entity's core. Iron slammed his shield into the architect from below, the impact resonating across dimensional frequencies. The 4 of them, Monarch and 3 greatest shadows, attacked with perfect coordination, each strike building on the last, each assault exploiting openings created by the others. Impossible! The architect's voice carried genuine shock. Your power output exceeds projected parameters by 340%. This is evolution, Jin-Woo snarled, driving both daggers into the architect's chest. You're not the only one who learns and adapts. I've been getting stronger in this universe, absorbing its rules, integrating its physics with my own power. You calculated based on what I was, but I'm already beyond that. Shadow essence poured through the daggers, flooding into the architect's core. Jin-Woo began the extraction process, asserting dominance over the entity's existence, claiming it as he'd claimed the previous architect. But 2 Omega was stronger, more experienced. It fought back with desperate fury. I have existed for eons. I have shaped realities. I will not be consumed by an experiment. The architect's power exploded outward, a shockwave of dimensional energy that hurled Jin-Woo and his shadows back. Warning klaxons screamed aboard the Enterprise as the wave washed over them, shields buckling under the strain. Shields at 30%, Worf reported. That entity's death throes could destroy us. The architect began pulling power directly from the dimensional breach, growing larger, more substantial. Its form solidified further, becoming a towering giant of crystalline darkness that dwarfed even Beru's battle form. If I fall, I take everything with me. The breach will destabilize completely. This entire sector will be consumed. Jin-Woo felt the truth in those words. The system was calculating the collapse radius. If the architect triggered a full breach destabilization, and it would consume everything within 5 light years. Takut, the Vulcan homeworld, 3 other inhabited systems, all gone. Captain, Jin-Woo's voice carried across the comm. I need you to trust me. When I give the signal, I need the Enterprise to fire everything directly into the breach itself. Not at the architect, into the rift. That could accelerate the collapse, Picard protested. Or it could force it closed if we time it right. Jin-Woo shot back. "The architect is using the breach as a power source. If we sever that connection at the exact moment I finish the extraction, the feedback will seal the rift and prevent destabilization." Data's hands flew across his console, running calculations. "Captain, Jin-Woo's theory is sound. The probability of success is only 34.7%, but it's our best option. In all other scenarios, result in sector-wide annihilation." Picard made his decision in an instant. "All weapons, target the dimensional breach. Await my command." He looked at the view screen, where Jin-Woo and his shadows were preparing for a final assault. "We're ready, Commander. Make it count." Jin-Woo nodded, then turned to face the Prime Architect. "Last chance to surrender. Become part of my Shadow Army willingly, and you'll serve a higher purpose than your experiments ever achieved." "Never. I am the Prime. I am eternal. Arise," Jin-Woo commanded, speaking directly to the Architect's essence. His power surged forward, not attacking, but claiming, asserting that the Architect was already defeated, already dead, already his. It was psychological warfare on a cosmic scale, attempting to impose will through sheer conviction. And incredibly, it began to work. The Architect's form started to fracture, shadow essence creeping through cracks in its crystalline structure. The entity had been so focused on maintaining the breach and defending against physical attacks that it had left its conceptual existence vulnerable. Jin-Woo poured everything he had into the extraction. His shadow soldiers on Takut's surface fed him power through their connection. The hybrid shadow technology enhancement to the Enterprise resonated with his essence, providing additional energy. Even Igris, Baru, and Iron temporarily dissolved their physical forms, becoming pure power that Jin-Woo could channel. No, I refuse. The Architect's voice grew weaker, quieter, until finally, "King!" The massive entity collapsed into shadow, its consciousness absorbed into Jin-Woo's authority. And in that instant of completion, Jin-Woo screamed, "Now, Captain, fire everything!" The Enterprise unleashed its full arsenal, every phaser bank, every torpedo tube, all power reserves dumped into weapon systems enhanced by shadow essence. The barrage streaked toward the dimensional breach and detonated inside it. The rift convulsed, reality screamed, and then, impossibly, it began to seal. The dimensional breach, which had been expanding toward critical mass, suddenly reversed. The edges pulled inward, forced closed by the combination of the Enterprise's weapons, Jin-Woo's shadow essence, and the Architect's severed connection to its power source. The last dimensional warriors on Takut's surface simply stopped. Without the Architect's coordination, and without the breach maintaining them, they became unstable and dissolved into scattered energy. And then, silence. The breach was sealed. The invasion was over. And Jin-Woo floated in space, breathing hard, his power temporarily exhausted but victorious. The system chimed. Prime Architect 2 Omega, defeated. Shadow extraction, success. Massive experience gained. Level up, level up, level up, level up, level up. New title acquired, Architect Slayer. New skill acquired, Dimensional Breach Sealing. Shadow Army capacity increased to 15 million. Warning, power exhaustion detected. Recovery time, 6 hours. Jin-Woo allowed himself a tired smile. Worth it. Picard's voice came through the comm, filled with relief and admiration. Commander Sung, we're beaming you aboard. You've saved 2.7 billion lives today. Well done doesn't begin to cover it. As the transporter beam locked onto him, Jin-Woo took one last look at Takut below. The planet was safe. Its people were alive. And somewhere in the Shadow Army's ranks, a new soldier had joined. One with knowledge of 10,000 dimensional experiments, countless universes, and perhaps a way home. 6 hours later, Jin-Woo woke in the Enterprise's guest quarters to find he wasn't alone. Q sat in a chair across the room, legs crossed, watching him with undisguised fascination. "Wakey, wakey, you've been unconscious for quite some time." I was beginning to worry my favorite interdimensional anomaly had broken himself. Jin-Woo sat up slowly, his body still aching from power exhaustion, a rare sensation for someone with his regeneration capabilities. "How long have you been watching me sleep? That's creepy, even for you." "Only 3 hours," Q said cheerfully. "The other 3 I spent reviewing your battle with the Prime Architect. Magnificent, truly spectacular. You're evolving faster than I predicted. When you first arrived, I gave you maybe 40% odds of surviving a year in this universe. Now?" He snapped his fingers. A holographic display appeared showing complex probability curves. 87%. You're learning, adapting, becoming something entirely new. Jin-Woo rubbed his temples. "Is there a point to this visit, or are you just here to gloat about being right?" "Oh, there's always a point." Q's expression turned uncharacteristically serious. "You absorbed the Prime Architect. Do you have any idea what that means?" "I have its knowledge now," Jin-Woo said, accessing the memories he'd extracted. They were vast, overwhelming. 10,000 dimensional experiments spanning millions of years. "I know how the architects operated, how they manipulated dimensional barriers, why they were running these experiments." "And?" Q prompted. Jin-Woo's eyes darkened. "They were trying to create the perfect universe, and they believed all existing realities were flawed, imperfect. So they ran experiments, introducing variables, observing outcomes, destroying failures. My universe was one such experiment. The system, the monarchs, the rulers, all of it was engineered to test whether beings could transcend their limitations through conflict. And when you inherited the Shadow Monarch's power and ended their experiment prematurely," Q continued, "they decided to punish me by trapping me in another experimental universe." Jin-Woo finished. "The dimensional breach that brought me here wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. The architects wanted to see what would happen when a successful experiment subject was introduced to a different testing ground." Q applauded slowly. "Very good. You've grasped the essential horror of your situation. You're not just a visitor to this universe, Jin-Woo. You're a variable, an introduced element meant to disrupt the Federation's timeline and see how it adapts." "But I killed 2 architects," Jin-Woo pointed out. "That wasn't part of their plan." "No, it most certainly wasn't," Q laughed. "That's what makes you so delicious. You were supposed to be observed, studied, perhaps killed if you proved too disruptive. Instead, you're hunting them. The experimenters are being hunted by their own experiment. The irony is exquisite." Jin-Woo stood, testing his recovered strength. The system confirmed he was back to full capacity. "How many architects are left?" "That," Q said, his expression turning enigmatic, "is the question, isn't it? The Prime Architect you absorbed knew of at least 17 others. But the architects exist outside normal space-time, so counting them is tricky." 17, Jin-Woo repeated. "And they're all running similar experiments across different universes?" "Oh no, much more diverse than that," Q gestured, and the room transformed. They were suddenly floating in a void filled with infinite bubbles, each one representing a universe. Some architects test technological evolution, others experiment with magical systems. Some introduce catastrophic events to see how civilizations respond. A few, and these are the really twisted ones, create paradise scenarios and observe how long it takes for inhabitants to become decadent and self-destructive. Jin-Woo studied the multiversal display. And the Federation? What kind of experiment is this? A civilization study, Q explained. Me, the Federation represents idealism, a society built on cooperation, exploration, and mutual respect. The architects wanted to see if such a civilization could survive sustained contact with hostile forces. The Borg, the Dominion, various cosmic threats, all introduced or encouraged by architect manipulation. You're saying the Federation's greatest enemies exist because the architects wanted to test humanity? Partly. The Borg, for instance, were already cybernetic when the architects found them. But their aggressive expansion, their adaptive perfection, that was encouraged, guided, made worse. Q's expression was uncharacteristically somber. The architects don't create evil, Jin-Woo. They cultivate it. They take existing darkness and amplify it to see how light responds. That's monstrous, Jin-Woo said quietly. That's experimentation, Q corrected. Cold, clinical, utterly devoid of empathy. Which is why I'm actually rather pleased you're killing them. The architects have always annoyed me. They lack imagination. Where's the artistry in simply running tests? Where's the joy in observation without participation? Jin-Woo turned to face the omnipotent being directly. Why are you telling me this? What's your angle? Q smiled. Because I want to make you an offer. You're hunting architects. I can help. I can show you where they operate, which universes they're currently experimenting on, how to find them when they hide in dimensional voids. In exchange for what? Entertainment! Q spread his arms wide. I want to watch you dismantle their precious experiments. I want to see the look on their faces when they realize their test subject has become their executioner. And maybe, just maybe, I want to see if you can actually find your way home and survive the journey. Jin-Woo studied Q carefully. The system was analyzing the offer, trying to detect deception or hidden traps. But Q was too powerful, too alien for conventional analysis. Either you trusted him or you didn't. Provisional agreement, Jin-Woo said finally. You provide intelligence on architect locations. I handle the combat. You don't interfere unless I explicitly ask. And you tell me if any of your information leads me into a death trap. Deal. Q snapped his fingers, and a small crystalline device appeared in Jin-Woo's hand. That's a dimensional compass. It'll point you toward the nearest active architect experiment. Consider it a gift from one chaos agent to another. The device pulsed with energy, and immediately Jin-Woo felt it tugging his awareness toward a specific direction, somewhere in the Delta Quadrant, near Borg space. There's an architect near the Borg Collective? Jin-Woo asked. Operating the Collective, Q corrected. The Borg Queen? An architect construct. The entire hive mind? An experiment in forced unity versus individual thought. The architects have been running that test for over 900 years. Jin-Woo's expression went cold. Then it's time to end it. Q clapped his hands with delight. Oh, this is going to be fun. But perhaps wait a few weeks? You just fought a prime architect? Even you need recovery time. Besides, he gestured and the room returned to normal. Starfleet has plans for you. As if on cue, the door chimed. Come in, Jin-Woo called. Captain Picard entered, followed by Admiral Tavik and, surprisingly, a Vulcan woman Jin-Woo didn't recognize. She wore civilian robes rather than a Starfleet uniform and her presence radiated authority that had nothing to do with military rank. "Commander Sung," Picard said formally, "may I introduce Ambassador T'Pau of Vulcan. She represents the Vulcan High Command and wishes to speak with you." T'Pau stepped forward, her dark eyes assessing Jin-Woo with clinical precision. "Commander Sung, you saved 2.7 billion Vulcan lives yesterday. The Vulcan people are in your debt." "I was just doing what needed to be done," Jin-Woo replied. "Nonetheless, a debt exists. Vulcans take such obligations seriously." T'Pau clasped her hands behind her back. "I have been authorized by the High Command to offer you formal alliance status, Vulcan resources, scientific expertise, and diplomatic support, all available to you as you continue your campaign against the Architects." Jin-Woo raised an eyebrow. "That's generous. What do you want in return?" "Information," T'Pau said bluntly. "The knowledge you extracted from the Prime Architect contains data on dimensional manipulation that could revolutionize our understanding of physics. We do not ask for complete disclosure, merely consultation. Share what you believe is relevant, and we will provide analysis and theoretical frameworks." "A fair trade," Admiral Tavik added. "Your instinctive understanding of dimensional forces combined with Vulcan scientific methodology could yield significant breakthroughs." Jin-Woo considered this, and the Vulcans were logical, straightforward, and honorable. Unlike Section 31, they wouldn't try to exploit him. Unlike Starfleet Command, they wouldn't attempt political manipulation. They were offering genuine partnership. "Agreed," Jin-Woo said. "But I maintain operational independence. I share information voluntarily, not on demand." "Acceptable," T'Pau replied. "Vulcans value autonomy. We would not presume to command you." Q, who had been watching this exchange with amusement, suddenly interjected. "How touching. A coalition forming around our dimensional vigilante. But tell me, Ambassador, does Vulcan logic account for the possibility that Jin-Woo's presence in this universe might itself be an architect experiment? That every action he takes could be playing into their design?" The room went silent. T'Pau's expression remained neutral, but her eyes sharpened. "An interesting hypothesis. Do you have evidence to support it?" "Only observation," Q replied. "The Architects are masters of long-term planning, introducing a variable as powerful as Jin-Woo, then monitoring how the universe adapts. That's exactly the kind of experiment they design." Jin-Woo had already considered this possibility. "Then I'll make sure to disappoint them. If they wanted me to disrupt this universe, I'll protect it. If they wanted me to fail, I'll succeed. Either way, I'm not playing their game." "Unless defying them is part of the game," Q said with a mischievous grin. "Free will versus predestination, chaos versus order." "Oh, this is delicious." Picard intervened firmly. "Q, if you're quite finished philosophizing, we have practical matters to discuss." He turned to Jin-Woo. "Starfleet Command has reviewed your actions at Takut. They're impressed, though also concerned about the power you've demonstrated. There's been discussion about forming a specialized task force. Ships and personnel dedicated to responding to dimensional threats with you as tactical advisor." "Task Force Umbra," Admiral Tavik supplied. "Composed of Starfleet's most advanced vessels and experienced crews. You would have direct authority to deploy them against Architect incursions." Jin-Woo shook his head. "I work better alone, or with small teams I trust. A fleet would just slow me down." "Nevertheless, you cannot be everywhere," T'Pau pointed out. "The dimensional compass Q provided may guide you to the nearest Architect. But what of simultaneous incursions? But what if 3 breaches open at once?" She had a point. Jin-Woo could deploy his shadow army across vast distances, but coordinating multiple large-scale battles simultaneously would strain even his capabilities. A compromise, Jin-Woo proposed. Task Force Umbra operates independently under Starfleet command. If I detect a threat I can't handle alone, I can call for support. If they detect something and can't handle it, they call me. We coordinate without one side controlling the other. Picard nodded thoughtfully. That could work. Admiral Tavik, can you present that structure to Starfleet Command? I will recommend it, Tavik confirmed. Q stood suddenly, reality rippling around him. Well, this has been lovely, but I have omnipotent business to attend to. Jin-Woo, do use that dimensional compass wisely. The next architect you face won't be as straightforward as the last two. Some of them have been running experiments for millions of years. They've learned creativity. I'll manage, Jin-Woo said. I'm sure you will. Q smiled. That's what makes you so entertaining. He vanished in a flash of light. In the silence that followed, T'Pau spoke carefully. Q's involvement concerns me. The entity is notoriously unpredictable. But his information has been accurate, Jin-Woo countered. The dimensional sensor network he provided detected the T'Kut breach before it became critical. Without that early warning, we wouldn't have arrived in time. True, Picard acknowledged. Though I suspect Q has his own reasons for helping you. Reasons we may not fully understand. Probably, Jin-Woo agreed. But for now, our interests align. Makee wants to see the architects defeated. So do I. I'll take what help I can get. Admiral Tavik's communicator chirped. He listened briefly, then looked at Jin-Woo with what might have been Vulcan surprise. Commander, the Vulcan Science Academy has completed preliminary analysis of the dimensional breach data you provided. They wish to present their findings immediately. They claim to have discovered something significant regarding your original universe. Jin-Woo's heart rate spiked. What kind of significant? They did not specify, only that it relates to potential return pathways. Tavik paused. If they believe they may have found a way to send you home. The system chimed urgently. Quest, update, find the way home. Major breakthrough detected. New probability of successful return, 67%. Warning, return pathway may be temporary. Estimated window of opportunity, 72 hours after activation. Jin-Woo stood, energy suddenly coursing through him despite his recent exhaustion. Take me to them, now. The Vulcan Science Academy was a marvel of logical architecture. Clean lines, efficient spaces, and technology integrated seamlessly with the environment. Jin-Woo barely noticed any of it as he was led to a secure laboratory deep within the facility. 3 Vulcan scientists were waiting, led by an elderly woman whose eyes sparkled with intellectual excitement despite her species' legendary emotional control. Commander Sung, she said, pressing her fingers together in the Vulcan salute. I am Talara, Director of Dimensional Studies. We have analyzed the data extracted from the Prime Architect, and the implications are extraordinary. She activated a holographic display showing 2 universes, Jin-Woo's original reality and the Star Trek universe, connected by a thin, pulsing thread. The dimensional breach that brought you here did not simply tear a hole between realities, Talara explained. It created a resonance link. Your universe and this one are now entangled at the quantum level. Under normal circumstances, this entanglement would fade over time, approximately 6 to 8 months, as your system predicted. But, Jin-Woo prompted, sensing there was more. But you have absorbed 2 architects, Talara continued. Their knowledge includes the techniques for stabilizing dimensional resonance. If we apply those techniques, we can strengthen the entanglement temporarily and create a stable return pathway. How temporarily? Jin-Woo asked. 72 hours. After that, the strain would collapse both universes into each other. Catastrophic dimensional merger. Talara's expression was grave. You would have 3 days to pass through, return to your universe, and seal the pathway from the other side using the techniques you've learned here. Jin-Woo processed this. 3 days. A narrow window, but achievable. When could you activate this pathway? The process requires significant preparation. We would need to construct a dimensional anchor array, calibrate it to your specific quantum signature, and generate enough power to force the resonance. Talara calculated rapidly. Minimum 4 weeks, potentially 6 if complications arise. 4 to 6 weeks, a month and a half at most. After 3 weeks in this universe, Jin-Woo would soon be able to go home. But that meant he had limited time to finish his work here, to hunt the remaining architects, to ensure this universe was safe before he left. Start the preparations, Jin-Woo said. I have hunting to do in the meantime. Picard, who had accompanied Jin-Woo to the academy, spoke quietly. You're really going to leave? This isn't my universe, Jin-Woo replied. I have responsibilities in my own world. People counting on me, my family. He paused. But I'll make sure this universe is safer before I go. The architects that manipulated the Federation, I'll deal with them. I'm the Borg Queen that's really an architect construct. I'll handle that too. That's a tall order for 4 weeks, Picard observed. Jin-Woo's eyes gleamed with determination. Then I'd better get started. Talara interjected. Commander, there is one additional concern. The return pathway will be visible to any architect monitoring dimensional frequencies. When we activate it, they will know. They will understand that you have found a way home. And they'll try to stop me, Jin-Woo finished. Good, let them come. I'll be ready. The system displayed a new notification. Quest update, find the way home. Estimated time to completion, 4 to 6 weeks. New objective, eliminate major architect threats before departure. Priority targets identified. 1. Architect controlling Borg Collective. 2. Architect manipulating Dominion War. Konekis? Jin-Woo studied the list, his tactical mind already formulating plans. 3 major targets in 4 weeks. Aggressive timeline, but manageable if he struck fast and hard. Admiral Tavik, Jin-Woo said, I'm going to need that Task Force Umbra operational as soon as possible, and I'll need access to Starfleet's most current intelligence on Borg space, the Dominion, and Romulan strategic positions. I will expedite both requests, Tavik confirmed. Captain Picard, Jin-Woo continued, I know the Enterprise isn't a warship, but would you and your crew be willing to accompany me on one final mission? After everything we've been through, it feels right to finish this together. Picard's expression softened with what might have been sentiment, though he maintained his professional composure. Commander Sung Jin-Woo, it would be our honor. The Enterprise will stand with you until the end. Jin-Woo extended his hand, and Picard shook it firmly. Then let's make these next 4 weeks count, Jin-Woo said. We're going to wage war on gods, free civilizations from cosmic manipulation, and make damn sure that when I leave this universe, it's better than when I arrived. Somewhere in the dimensional void beyond normal space, 17 architects felt a disturbance. Their experiment subject had evolved beyond predictions. Their test variables had become a threat. And most concerning of all, the Shadow Monarch had found a way home. emergency protocols activated. Contingencies were implemented. And across the multiverse, ancient beings who had observed civilizations rise and fall for millions of years prepared for something they had never experienced before. Fear. Because for the first time in their endless existence, the architects were being hunted. 4 weeks later, the dimensional anchor array activated. It was a massive structure, a ring of crystalline technology spanning 300 meters, floating in orbit above Earth. Vulcan scientists, Starfleet engineers, and Jin-Woo's own understanding of architect dimensional manipulation had combined to create something that shouldn't exist. A stable doorway between realities. The Enterprise held position at the array's center, and on the bridge, the crew watched as the portal began to form. Not a violent tear like the breaches Jin-Woo had sealed, but a controlled opening. A shimmering gateway that pulsed with silver-black energy. Through it, they could see Jin-Woo's Earth. A world where gates to dungeons still appeared, where hunters fought monsters, where humanity had learned to coexist with the supernatural. It looked simultaneously familiar and alien. Jin-Woo stood before the view screen, fully armored in the black coat and battle gear he'd worn when he first arrived. Behind him, his 3 greatest shadows, Baru, Igris, and Iron, stood at attention, ready to return home. The past 4 weeks had been brutal, efficient, devastating. Week 1. Jin-Woo had infiltrated Borg space using shadow transit, located the architect controlling the collective, and extracted it along with the Borg Queen. Without architect manipulation, the collective fragmented into smaller, manageable hive clusters. The Borg remained a threat, but no longer an existential one. Starfleet had breathing room to develop proper countermeasures. Week 2. He'd struck the Dominion, on discovering that the Founders' paranoia and aggression had been amplified by architect influence for centuries. Removing that influence wouldn't end the conflict, but it would make peace negotiations actually possible. The war that had seemed inevitable might now be avoided. Week 3. The Romulan operation had been the most delicate. The architect there wasn't controlling the Empire, just observing, occasionally nudging events toward conflict. Jin-Woo had eliminated the observer, but left Romulan sovereignty intact. Tomalak had been appreciative in his own way. Week 4. Preparation. Because Jin-Woo knew what was coming, eliminating 3 major architects had sent shockwaves through the cosmic experiment network. The remaining 14 architects would respond, and they had. 6 hours ago, the dimensional sensors had detected massive disturbances across the galaxy. 14 architects manifesting simultaneously in coordinated positions, preparing a final assault to prevent Jin-Woo's escape. They were coming. Soon. But first, there were goodbyes. Commander Sung, Picard said formally, stepping forward. In the 4 weeks we've known each other, you've fundamentally altered this galaxy's future. The Borg diminished, the Dominion War potentially averted, the Architect's grip on our reality broken. The Federation owes you a debt that can never be fully repaid. You don't owe me anything, Jin-Woo replied. I did what needed doing, what I was capable of doing, that's all. Nevertheless, Picard extended his hand. You've been an exemplary officer, a valued ally, and a good man. It has been an honor serving alongside you. Jin-Woo shook his hand firmly, a slight smile crossing his face. The honor was mine, Captain. You reminded me that not all authority figures are corrupt or self-serving. That idealism can coexist with pragmatism. I'll carry that lesson home. Riker stepped forward next, grinning. I've got to ask, when you get back, what are you going to tell people about your interdimensional vacation? The truth, Jin-Woo said. That I accidentally fell into a universe of starships and aliens, fought cosmic beings, made friends with principled explorers, and annoyed an omnipotent entity. They probably won't believe me, but it'll make a good story. They'll believe you when you demonstrate everything you learned here, Data observed. Your understanding of subspace manipulation has been integrated with your shadow abilities. You are returning more powerful than when you left. Jin-Woo nodded. And with knowledge of how other universes operate. That might come in handy if the architects ever target my world again. Worf approached, and surprisingly, he pressed his fist to his chest in a Klingon salute. You fight with honor. You show mercy to the worthy and destruction to the corrupt. You are a warrior worthy of song. If you ever return to this universe, I would be honored to stand beside you in battle again. Likewise, Worf, Jin-Woo replied, returning the salute. Counselor Troy stepped forward, her empathic abilities reaching toward him one final time. You're still carrying pain from your world. Losses you haven't fully processed. Responsibilities that weigh on you. She smiled gently. But I also sense hope, more than when you arrived. You've remembered that you don't have to carry everything alone. Working with all of you reminded me of that, Jin-Woo acknowledged. I'll try to remember it when I get home. Dr. Crusher approached with a medical tricorder. One final scan for the road. I'm still trying to understand how your regeneration works. Jin-Woo laughed. Still trying to solve me like a puzzle? Always, Crusher admitted. But I'll settle for saying, take care of yourself. Dimensional travel is hard on the body, even yours. Rest when you get home. Let yourself heal, not just physically. I'll try, Jin-Woo promised. LaForge was last, carrying a small device. I made you something. Call it a going-away present. He handed it over, a communicator badge modified with shadow resonant crystals. It's keyed to your quantum signature. If you ever find a way back, or if we somehow manage to contact you across dimensions, this'll work as a beacon. Probably. The math is theoretical, but it's perfect, Jin-Woo said, attaching it to his coat. Thank you, Geordi, for this and for helping enhance the ship. The hybrid technology you developed from that accident might revolutionize Starfleet's capabilities. Already working on it, LaForge confirmed with a grin. Admiral Tavik stepped forward, hands clasped behind his back in perfect Vulcan composure. Commander, the Vulcan Science Academy wishes to maintain contact if possible. The knowledge you've shared has opened entirely new fields of study. We would be most appreciative if future communication could be established. If I figure out how to bridge dimensions intentionally, you'll be my first call, Jin-Woo promised. A familiar flash of light announced Q's arrival. The omnipotent entity appeared wearing an absurd outfit. Part Starfleet uniform, part hunter gear from Jin-Woo's world, part pure theatrical excess. Did you really think I'd miss this? Q demanded. The grand finale, the triumphant return, the Shadow Monarch going home after saving an entire universe. It's perfect, dramatic, absolutely television-worthy. I'm going to miss you least of all, Jin-Woo said dryly. Liar, Q grinned. You'll miss my charming personality and witty banter. But more importantly, his expression turned serious. You should know that the remaining architects are preparing their assault. Or they'll strike the moment you step through that portal, trying to destabilize it and trap you between dimensions. I know, Jin-Woo said calmly. Let them come. Ooh, confidence. I like it. Q snapped his fingers, and suddenly he was holding a bowl of popcorn. I'll I'll be watching from a safe, multidimensional distance. Do try to make it spectacular." The dimensional sensors screamed alerts. All 14 remaining architects were manifesting simultaneously, converging on Earth's position. "Captain," Data reported urgently, "massive dimensional breaches opening across the system. 14 distinct architect signatures detected. They're forming a blockade around the portal." On the view screen, the architects appeared, each one different in form but united in purpose. Some resembled the prime architect Jin-Woo had defeated. Others were more abstract, barely maintaining coherent shape in normal space. But all of them radiated immense power. "Shadow Monarch." Their voices resonated in perfect unison. "You have disrupted our experiments, killed our colleagues, contaminated multiple realities with your interference. You will not be permitted to leave. You will be contained, studied, and ultimately destroyed." Jin-Woo stepped into the transporter and materialized in space before them, his shadow army erupting around him like a dark constellation. Not 100,000 soldiers, not 1,000,000. 15 million shadow warriors, including every Borg drone, dimensional soldier, and architect construct he'd extracted over the past month. An army that stretched across thousands of kilometers, blocking the stars. "You made a mistake," Jin-Woo said, his voice carrying across subspace to reach every architect simultaneously. "You thought you could run your experiments forever, that you could manipulate civilizations without consequence. That power meant you were untouchable." He raised both hands, and his army responded, weapons drawn and ready. "I'm here to teach you otherwise. Arrogant experiment. You are one being against 14 eternal entities. You cannot." "Arise," Jin-Woo commanded, and his entire army moved as one. What followed was a battle that would be analyzed by Starfleet tactical academies for decades. 15 million shadow soldiers against 14 architects, and the dimensional horrors they commanded. Reality itself became the battlefield, with forces clashing across multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. Beru led aerial assaults, his ant warriors swarming architects with coordinated precision. Igris commanded the ground forces, his blade work cutting through dimensional barriers like paper. Iron-anchored defensive positions, his shield protecting key positions from architect reality warping attacks. And Jin-Woo himself moved through the battle like death incarnate, targeting architects one by one. He'd learned from his previous encounters. He knew their patterns, their tactics, their weaknesses. Each architect he engaged received his full, undivided attention for precisely 17 seconds, the time it took to drive his daggers home and begin extraction. The first architect fell in 90 seconds, the second in 80. By the sixth, Jin-Woo had refined his technique to the point where extraction took less than a minute. The remaining architects panicked. They'd expected overwhelming numerical advantage. Instead, they were being systematically harvested. "Retreat! Dimensional scatter protocol! We must—" "No," Jin-Woo said coldly, activating his domain expansion. Reality bent to his will, creating a sphere that encompassed the entire battle space. Inside his domain, dimensional transit was impossible. The architects were trapped. "You wanted to study me?" Jin-Woo asked, driving his daggers into the seventh architect. "Consider this your final lesson. When you create a weapon, make sure it can't turn on you." Aboard the Enterprise, the crew watched in stunned silence as the architects fell one by one. Some fought desperately. Others attempted negotiation. A few even tried to surrender. Jin-Woo showed mercy to none of them, not out of cruelty, but necessity. Then these beings had manipulated countless civilizations, caused untold suffering, all in the name of cosmic experimentation. They couldn't be allowed to continue. The 14th and final architect fell 73 minutes after the battle began. As Jin-Woo absorbed its essence, the system erupted with notifications. All architects in Star Trek universe eliminated. Massive experience gained. Level up, 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 level up. Maximum level achieved in current reality. New title acquired, Cosmic Liberator. Shadow Army capacity, unlimited within Star Trek universe. Warning, power levels will reset upon return to original universe. Architect knowledge fully integrated. Jin-Woo floated in space, surrounded by his army, breathing hard from exertion, but victorious. And the portal home pulsed invitingly behind him. Picard's voice came through his communicator. Jin-Woo, that was... I don't have words. You're safe now, Jin-Woo replied simply. The architects are gone. Their experiments ended. The Federation can chart its own course without cosmic manipulation. Because of you, Picard said. Jin-Woo, what you've done here will echo through history. You've given us freedom we didn't even know we'd lost. Then use it wisely, Jin-Woo replied. Explore, discover, build alliances. And remember that power without principle leads to tyranny. The Federation's ideals matter. Don't lose sight of them. We won't, Picard promised. You have my word. Jin-Woo turned to face the portal. His army began dissolving, returning to Shadow storage except for Baru, Igris, and Iron, who would accompany him home. A fine hunt, my king, Baru said with satisfaction. This universe will remember your shadow. And fear those who would threaten innocence, Igris added. We return home victorious, Iron rumbled, as always. Jin-Woo took one final look at the Enterprise, at Earth, at this universe that had become his temporary home. He'd arrived by accident. He was leaving by choice. And in between, he'd made a difference. Q appeared beside him one final time, no longer theatrical, but genuinely respectful. You know, when you first fell into this universe, I gave you less than 6 months to survive. You proved me wonderfully wrong. You didn't just survive, you thrived, evolved, became something new. Thanks to the people I met here, Jin-Woo acknowledged. They taught me that strength isn't just about power. It's about what you do with it. A lesson the architects never learned, Q observed. That's why they fell, and you stand victorious. He smiled. Safe travels, Shadow Monarch. And if you ever want to visit again, just think really hard about how annoying I am. I'll hear you across dimensions. I'll keep that in mind, Jin-Woo said with a slight smile. He stepped toward the portal, then paused and turned back one final time. Captain Picard, tell Starfleet that if they ever face another dimensional crisis, they can try to contact me. I don't know if it'll work across realities, but if I can help, I will. We'll remember, Picard called back. Farewell, Commander Sung. May you find peace in your own world. Jin-Woo smiled one final time. Then he walked through the portal, his 3 greatest shadows following, and the gateway pulsed with brilliant light, and for a moment, 2 universes touched. Then the portal sealed. The dimensional resonance faded, and Sung Jin-Woo, the Shadow Monarch, the Architect Slayer, the Cosmic Liberator, returned home. On the Enterprise bridge, silence fell. Then Riker spoke, his voice quiet with awe. Do you think we'll ever see him again? Picard stared at where the portal had been, a slight smile on his face. I don't know, number one. But if the multiverse needs him, I suspect he'll find a way. That's who he is. A protector who cannot rest while innocents suffer. Wherever he goes, whatever reality he inhabits, that fundamental truth remains constant. Data tilted his head thoughtfully. Captain, with the architects eliminated and the knowledge they left behind, Starfleet will need to decide how to proceed. All we now know of the multiverse, of other realities, of threats beyond our dimension. And opportunities, Picard added. Jin-Woo showed us that the multiverse isn't just danger, it's possibility. Other civilizations, other philosophies, other ways of existence. Perhaps someday, when we're ready, we'll explore those possibilities. Q appeared one final time on the bridge, still eating popcorn. Well, that was thoroughly entertaining. The Shadow Monarch returns home, the architects are defeated, and the Federation gets to keep existing. Happy endings all around. He paused dramatically. Unless, of course, you count the fact that you now know you're not alone in the multiverse, that there are infinite realities out there, some friendly, some hostile, all waiting to be discovered. Q, Picard began warningly. Relax, Jean-Luc. I'm not threatening anything, just observing that your cozy little universe just got a lot bigger, and more complicated, and more interesting. Q vanished in a flash of light, his laughter echoing. Sweet dreams, Picard sighed deeply. I hate when he does that. Troy smiled softly. But he's right, isn't he? Everything's changed. Jin-Woo showed us that reality is far more vast than we imagined. And somewhere out there in his universe, he's protecting his people just like he protected us. In Seoul, South Korea, Earth, Jin-Woo's universe, a dimensional rift opened in the sky above the Hunter Association headquarters. Sung Jin-Woo stepped through, followed by 3 massive shadow warriors that made even S-rank hunters stumble back in shock. Jin-Woo looked around, breathing in the familiar air of his homeworld. 4 weeks in another universe. It had felt like years. His phone, which had somehow maintained charge throughout the journey, immediately exploded with notifications. Messages from his mother, his sister, the Hunter Association, guild masters, government officials, all demanding to know where he'd disappeared to. Before he could respond to any of them, a familiar voice called out, Hyung! Jinnah ran across the headquarters plaza and crashed into him with a hug that would have broken ribs on a normal human. Where have you been? You disappeared for a month. Mom was worried sick. I was worried sick. What happened? Jin-Woo hugged his sister back, feeling the weight of responsibility settle onto his shoulders once more. He was home, back to protecting his world, back to the duties of the strongest hunter. But he was also changed. He carried knowledge of other universes, techniques learned from fighting architects, friendships forged across dimensions, and most importantly, a renewed understanding of why he fought. I'll explain everything, he told Jinnah. But first, is Earth safe? No major gate breaks while I was gone? Nothing we couldn't handle, Jinnah replied. Though everyone's been asking about you. There are rumors you were fighting some secret threat in another dimension. Not entirely inaccurate, Jin-Woo said with a slight smile. When the system chimed, return to original universe complete. Power levels stabilizing. Architect knowledge retained. Dimensional manipulation skills integrated. Shadow Army restored to original capacity. New quest available. Protect Earth from multiversal threats. Warning, your actions in Star Trek universe have been noticed by other dimensional entities. Further incursions probable. Jin-Woo read the warning with calm acceptance. Of course, other entities had noticed. He'd killed 16 architects, disrupted cosmic experiments, and proven that mortals could challenge gods. That kind of thing attracted attention. But he'd also proven he could win. And he'd gained allies across dimensions, allies who might help if the multiverse came calling again. For now, though, he was home, and that was enough. "Come on," he said to Jinnah. "Like, let's go see Mom. I have stories to tell." And then he looked up at the sky, where stars were beginning to appear in the evening light. "I have a world to protect, same as always." Jinnah grinned. "Same as always, Appa." They walked toward home together, the Shadow Monarch and his sister, while overhead, the stars shone bright. In one of those stars, a universe away, a starship called Enterprise continued its mission of exploration. And across the infinite multiverse, countless realities spun through space and time, each one a story waiting to unfold. The dimensional barriers between worlds had been proven permeable. The architect's grip on reality had been broken, and one hunter had learned that no matter which universe he inhabited, some truths remained constant. Power exists to protect the powerless, and strength means nothing without principle. And sometimes, the strongest warriors are the ones willing to fight for strangers in worlds not their own. Sung Jin-Woo smiled as he walked home, knowing that whatever came next, whether from his universe or beyond, he would be ready. Because he was the Shadow Monarch. And shadows exist in every reality.